So here is this gorgeous day, and it's needed. It's needed in many ways. It's needed because we're heading into the weekend, and you always want for great weather heading into the weekend, even though it looks a little spotty this weekend. But on a Friday, your spirits are, in general, just like in a little more pick-me-up mood, right? And it's needed for that reason, and obviously any help that can be given towards the floods and the relief from that. Dry weather clearly helps. Sunshine helps. It helps the mood in general. But it also is needed a little bit because it fits the mood from when you think about when you were a kid and the summertime was just arriving as opposed to just ending. And I always say the one thing about football season, my only hesitation with football, I love football. I loved to play the pros when I was a kid. I loved fantasy football. I love Sundays in the early part of the year when everybody's complaining because the roof was closed because it was too hot, and then later in the year when everybody's complaining that the roof was closed because it should be open because it's snow and let's enjoy the elements. I love every aspect of football. I love college football. I love watching Fernando Mendoza throw an interception, a pick six, and then afterwards giving an interview where he calls Joe Buck Mr. Buck, and how the rest of the country is just now figuring out what Indiana fans knew a year ago of this dude's just kind of different, but it's fun. I love every aspect of it. But the only aspect of football that gives me pause, the only thing about the football season that gives me a hesitation is the fact that I love summer, I love great weather, I love hanging out. I love late sunsets. And football season arrives and you blink twice, and before you know it, it's the polar vortex and it's dark outside at 4:30. But as officially now of yesterday, late afternoon, in fact, the era of Grand Park has come to a close. And for the most part now, even though I realize technically under the guise of the title and the dates, they're back at the complex, and as a result, training camp is over. So today is fitting because at the very least, if you are a Colts player, it feels like the beginning of, in fact, the summertime to an extent, right? Because this was what was blaring right here. That's what everybody was blaring as they were leaving Grand Park yesterday, just like when it used to be that the Colts would leave Anderson and suddenly I-69 would become this Audubon of expensive vehicles. The summer school, to an extent, is over for the Colts. Now they move on because it's Atlanta this weekend with the Falcons, preseason game number 2. Then it's back to West 56th before getting set for the Detroit Lions and into the regular season itself. And camp and the era at Drop Like Grand Park in Westfield have come to a close for the Colts. Good morning to you. My name is Jay Cordy. Eddie Garrison, the other voice you hear in this program, and I will admit to this fact. Tired this morning. I'm not usually a tired guy. I'm tired this morning because last night, there I was knowing that everything moved away from Grand Park, and I had not Sugar Plum Fairies dancing in my head, but I had all of this stuff that we were going to talk about today going through in my head. I was thinking about the fact that high school football is about to get underway.
We had a pre-show meeting last night, did we not,
Well,
Jake?
that's what I'm getting to here, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about all of these things, and I'm thinking about the fact that Rhett Lewis is going to join us on the program and how much fun he is and how we can talk both college and professional football with him. And I'm thinking about Mendoza that I just talked about. And I'm sitting there and just as I'm about to doze off, I'm thinking about the fact that, man, there were this incredible steal by Kelsey Mitchell where she goes in and holy cow, they're going to cut the lead and the Fever are going to come roaring back and win this game. And this feels like a Pacers-Halliburton playoff moment. And she oddly decides to do this weird reverse layup attempt and misses the layup, and it kind of takes the sail out of it. But she has a record-setting performance from a scoring standpoint. And I'm thinking about the Colts and the Falcons and Tua doing whatever he can to look. Tua doesn't even look like Tua anymore. He looks like Wanna. right? Like it's like half of what he like what's going on here. You know what I mean? And so, although physically speaking, he looks 4A, to be honest with you, but from a production standpoint, he's 1A. He's not even 2A. And so I'm thinking about all of this, and I'm just about to drift off, and I'm thinking, here we go. Tomorrow's going to be a magical program because I'm going to get the right amount of sleep, and I'm going to be able to articulate all of these things going on. And then all of a sudden, and I think, what in the world is that? What in the world is that? And I look down, and here it is. The one day of the month where I'm going to get my proper amount of sleep, my beauty, and believe you me, when people look at me, the first thing they say is, "You get a lot of beauty sleep, don't you?" Well, no, this is all natural. But here I am about to doze off, and there it is again. I look down and it says, and I'm thinking, Eddie Garrison is calling me. And the most horrific part about it is, if you know anything about iPhones in today's world, people now they can present to you their own photo. Like here's it's a suggested contact thing. And so just as I'm about to fall asleep and just as I'm thinking these things, there's literally for a split second, I wonder to myself, why is my phone showing me the cover of the Sandlot video? And then I realize it's not the kid from the Sandlot, it's Eddie staring at me on the phone. And it's ringing again, and I answer it. And you're on your way home from a late night of producing the Fever postgame show, and you just decided to call for a chat. And that's what we did.
Yeah, we chatted for like 45 minutes.
Yeah. We just two guys hanging out, chatting, right?
Yeah.
Solve the world's problems. We discussed absolutely nothing about this program per se. We talked about everybody else that works here, but we didn't necessarily discuss things with ourselves. But nonetheless, I'm a little bit, as a result of that.
So you would say I got you all fired up then, is what you're saying?
Well, to an extent, but except for that it took me out of my sleep rhythm. Here it was. I stockpile my sleep, right? Like I'm like, okay, end of week. I have stuff going on at the beginning of the week. And so I'm a little bit groggy today. And I just simply ask for your patience, Eddie, because it's like I switched to Sanka.
Yeah.
Please have a heart, right?
It's a Football Friday, Jake. Happy Football Friday to you.
Football Friday.
Yeah.
This is going to be every Friday for the football season, right?
Yeah.
I'm writing this down. Football Friday. This is all the stations or all the shows on the station are doing Football Friday?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Anything else I need to know about Football Friday other than the fact that we're going to talk plenty of football on Football Fridays?
So every Friday from this point onward, we will have a guest to talk about high school football. Okay. Primarily, that'll be Kyle Nettenrip, unless something comes up, to talk about college football and what we'll do. And it's unlike the other shows, which is what makes us so unique, is that we will have a cast of characters fulfilling this specific portion of the show each and every week. So today, we take a drive up north. We go to South Bend, Indiana. We'll talk to Tom Noy, the South Bend Tribune.
I love Tom Noy.
We love Tom Noy.
Okay.
And then Kevin Bowen will join us weekly on Fridays to talk about the Colts.
I don't know why I think this,
which covers our professional football obligation.
But you know those during the World Cup, they kept showing the Norway team and the guys that do that row thing.
Yeah.
Doesn't it seem like those guys all, as they're rowing, would be yelling out "Noy"? Doesn't that sound like some sort of a
great point?
You know what I mean? Noy.
Yeah.
I don't know why, or Noy, like that.
Yeah.
One sounds more like something you'd hear like in Japan, but like just Noy. It sounds. Do we know the origin of Noy?
We don't.
Is that Scandinavian? Can I ask him?
Yes.
It's not spelled N-O-Y, right?
No, N-O-I-E.
That sounds Norwegian, doesn't it? Or maybe I'm just thinking that because you can't spell Norwegian without N-O-I-E. Do you think that's what that is?
I have no idea. You'll have to ask him at 2 o'clock.
So it's a Football Friday, but we mix in some Fever Chat, right?
Yes. We'll mix in some Fever Chat in there as well.
And it's just, overall, everything today is fantastic, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
We've
got tickets to give away for the Indy 11.
This looks similar to my first 7 algebra attempts. F's all over the place,
yeah,
right?
We've got, I guess you could say we have a 4-pack of football tickets to give away.
Not bad. Okay, so we got football tickets, right?
Yeah. Indy 11 tomorrow, Lou City. Rivalry matchup at Michael A. Carroll Stadium, 7 o'clock.
And this is not a friendly.
No, not a friendly at all.
F. Okay.
No friendly.
Okay, so we got Football Friday, we got Fever, we got football as well, right? Any other Fs we can work into the equation here?
That keep us within FCC compliance? I don't think so.
Former Colt Freddie Keaho available by chance?
Oh, good call there.
Didn't know if maybe we could get him into the program. Okay, so yesterday, Colts wrapping things up. You heard The guy's talking about it this morning. I think the big thing is, and I'm not going to be, again, I'm not pessimistic Pete. I'm not cynical Sam. Today I'll be optimistic Ollie. And optimistic Ollie says, you know what? You can't read a lot into camp. You can't overthink it. Juan Montoya said that famously. But you would rather, when you are going against different looks, different faces, you would rather actually look good than bad, goes without saying, but finish strong. You want to try to leave everything that happened over the course of the first half of training camp, we'll call it that, through 13 practices, I believe it was, out at Drop Like Grand Park. And they did finish strong according to all account and report. You heard Kevin and James talking about it, the fact that at the end of the camp itself, when they went to the 11-on-11s, they stifled Atlanta offensively. Drake London is a very good player. Obviously, Bijan Robinson's a very good player, but they didn't necessarily jump out at them. Liatu Latu was active, and they got an interception. And then offensively, I think they were efficient. And so they finished on a strong note. You would rather have that. You don't read too much into it. But I think the biggest thing is this, and I don't want to jinx anything. I don't want to put a hex on anything. I don't want to do reverse psychology here. But if there's one thing that you take away from their time up in Westfield, and I don't mean in totality because this is the end of an era in terms of the Colts and the training camp there. And, you know, I don't know if you saw it or not today on the YouTube chat, but the morning show, like James, I noticed James had on a shirt, and I believe it says moving forward. And moving forward for the Colts now, Grand Park is not going to be in the mix. This is becoming more and more the norm for teams in terms of their training camp. Just like we can get into this later today as well, teams doing apps for their television viewing like we talked about yesterday for the Pacers. That's going to become more and more the norm. That is not to benefit a fan, I realize, but that's reality. But over the years, when the Colts have had training camp, whether it be in Grand Park, whether it be at Rose-Hulman and Terre Haute, whether it be in Anderson, whether it be headquartered at Fall Creek Elementary School, which is no longer there, there usually is some sort of drama storyline. There's a holdout. There's a big fight. There's an injury. There's a trade or somebody that's demanding one. All kinds of drama. This has been, and I don't want to jinx anything, and I'm probably about to put a hex on it. I don't want to do that. But deep down, it feels to me like this has been the quietest camp so far. Like if a narrator was if John Facenda was brought in to do the DVD on the Colts 2026 training camp, and usually he would say, you know, the frozen, not so frozen tundra of Droplight Park in Westfield, you know, whatever it might be, Grand Park. This one, it would start out like with this whisper because there have been no significant injuries that we know of. There have been no drama storylines, and that's not altogether a bad thing. But what it does do is it enunciates, it further elevates the storylines that we look at and say, is there something here? For example, that of Alec Pierce. Is Alec Pierce on schedule? Well, he's not. He's not on schedule. He's not on the schedule that we were originally told he was going to be on. Now, does that mean that there is cause or pause or reason for concern? I don't know about that. But we shall see. There's still time, but time is running out here, right? And the other one is, I hate to be pessimistic, Pete. I'm going to try to be optimistic, Ollie. But even with that, you have to be realistic, Rick, here, of the fact that any time that Charvarius Ward, that we are discussing the back about him, it gives you concern. I heard Chap on yesterday with JMV, and he was saying, you know, when you have a player, as we've talked about, when you have a player that there is precedent of them and they have admitted to the fact of contemplating their career being over with and moving on and smelling the roses that they accumulated, injuries are tough. Injuries are psychologically tough. You know, whenever you see a player get hurt in any sport who has had injury before, we all have in our mind, and not to bring it up, but I will. When Tyrese Halliburton pounded that hardwood in Oklahoma City, he was pounding it because he was expressing and thinking in his mind what everyone was thinking. And that was they spun the roulette wheel one too many times. They had to. It was game 7. They had to. There's not a single person alive. I say a year ago, it was whatever it was, 15 months ago now. There was not a person alive watching that questioned or had doubt or second guessed why Tyrese Halliburton and the Pacers put the extension of effort into that lower leg calf injury that then crossed over into the Achilles. Everyone knew why they did. But when he was pounding that hardwood, he was pounding it because he knew the reality of what just happened. And he was pounding it because of losing that gamble. And they were going to win that game. Other times you see players that are getting carted off on a field and they're banging the side of the cart, or you see the exasperation that comes, the exclamatory despair. And if it's a player who's been hurt before, it's because of the psychology of just knowing how hard they worked, not just physically, but mentally to get back in the right spot. And now it's like the board game, sorry. Right back to where you started. That's a tough thing for people. It's a tough thing for players. You know, and I don't know, I'm not trying to overthink it when it comes to Charvarius Ward, but when somebody is that open about it, Andrew Luck, who I mentioned, is the prime example. Andrew Luck is one that it came down to, it wasn't by his own admission, even the physical toll that was going to take on his body with the injury. It was the fact that he didn't want to have to go through it all again. He was done with it. And I think that's one storyline to monitor. That's the big one to monitor.
We do have a storyline, Jake.
What's that?
We do have a storyline.
Do we have the breaking news sounder by chance? Yes, sir.
This was tweeted, let's see, 18 minutes ago. So
Okay.
we will need to be
right off the top.
We will need to be plugged in at 10 a.m. on Tuesday to @Colts on Twitter. Would you like to know why?
Somebody's doing a press conference.
No.
Blue is announcing something.
No.
Let me ask you that. You sound like that one guy. You know what I'm talking about?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
No. Because you see, there's some meme that goes around all the time or whatever. Okay, let me ask you this. Is this a legitimate story that the rest of the league is going to be interested in, or is this the kind of thing that is indicative of what I'm talking about? It's been a preseason void of storyline, and so therefore this one gets amplified when it's not really a big story.
Neither.
Okay, so you're saying we need to be tuned in at what time?
10 a.m. on Tuesday.
So you're telling everybody instead of listening to this program on Tuesday, they need to be looking at this.
They can still listen to the program.
So we can announce what this is. Go ahead and hit me.
New Jersey's being announced on Tuesday at 10. Or revealed.
That's your story?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Rivalries. The rivalry uniforms being released 10 a.m. on Tuesday. The countdown is on.
Okay, no, hold on. Do we happen to have the breaking news sounder? This just in. Jake is worried about this, and here's why. Any team that is constantly promoting or talking about uniform changes is stuck in mediocrity.
I don't think it's changes. I
realize this is now we're in the era of the marketing ploy of it with the merchandiser coming out with the alternate jerseys, and every team does this. I realize that, right? I realize that. But on a different segue, a different topic, I'm going to repeat what I've always said. Okay, Eddie, I want you to give me off the top of your head here. This is the Jake Query rant on uniforms. Off the top of your head, and I want you to be totally serious here, okay?
Okay.
I want you to tell me just off the top of your head. Don't overthink it. Just instant boom, boom, boom reaction, okay? In terms of, and I don't mean alternate jerseys. I don't mean like the city edition. I'm talking about like at the beginning of the year, this is their uniform or this is their hat or whatever. What 3 Major League Baseball teams in the last 30 years have undergone the highest number of different primary uniform color schemes or logos?
Major League Baseball?
Yes.
Okay. San Diego Padres would be one.
Okay.
I feel like they have a new one every year, kind of like the LA Rams in football.
Okay.
In NFL. Honestly, I cannot recall any.
I mean, the Padres are the big one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. In the NBA, give me teams that it seemingly you're like, they got different colors again this year. I don't mean uniform design. I mean like the color scheme and the logo and all that is, like, somebody has something that's retro because you're like, whoa, that's like the such and such era. What give me a couple of teams.
The Utah Jazz.
Okay.
The Orlando Magic.
Okay.
Those are the 2 that stick out to me.
Okay, and then lastly, NFL. Give me a couple of teams in the NFL that you're like, man, they've done their helmets like they're on their 3rd rendition of the helmet that I can remember in my lifetime.
The Rams.
Okay.
The Chargers. Not really the Chargers.
And I don't think the Rams really either. They just changed the colors back to original, but okay.
Buccaneers.
Okay. The Bucs have changed once, yep.
Jets.
Okay, good. Now, lastly, last part of the exercise here.
The Titans and the Texans just changed uniforms as well.
Okay. That feeds in also. Okay,
the Jags.
Jags, okay, yeah. Okay, now, I'm going to name the league. You tell me the 2 teams that have had the most consistent uniforms over the course of your lifetime. You ready?
Okay.
MLB.
Yankees.
Okay.
Dodgers.
Okay, that's good.
NBA, Lakers.
Okay.
Celtics.
Okay.
76ers for the most part.
Okay. NFL,
you're looking at, I would say the Colts would be in this category.
Yep.
The 49ers. They
Okay.
may have just altered a couple things. The Green Bay Packers. That should have been the top of mind there. The Baltimore Ravens.
Okay. Now, my point being.
The Dallas Cowboys.
Point being. New York Yankees. LA Dodgers. San Francisco 49ers. You see where I'm going with this. LA Lakers. Did I say that already? Boston Celtics. That's a far cry in terms of sustained excellence, tradition, success than the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Orlando Magic, the San Diego Padres. I'm not saying that those teams are all disasters, but when you have tradition, history, championships, you don't need gimmick. I get in this fact, one of the things that I think people most love about the Colts, I think people love the fact that the Colts, it is simplistic and it is traditional. Even going back to the Baltimore Colts days when they were abysmal. I mean, after Johnny Unitas, like in the late, Memorial Stadium is crumbling and these guys play in a band and they're wondering what happened because Mayflower Trucks just moved them to another place. In that era of Colts. And then into the RCA Dome, the Hoosier Dome then with, hey, we're going to bring back Huddles, the cute little mascot, and then we're going to have a white horse that's going to bring out and lead the team out on the field, and it actually dropped the deuce on the 15-yard line, and so let's go ahead and do away with that program. And, yeah, it was fun that Ray Butler had a tip-pass touchdown, but for the most part, we're thinking about bringing in Ricky Turner, and let's see what the late Blair Keel or Art Schleicher can do this year. and then into, holy cow, Jim Harbaugh is like really good. And now let's see if Don Mikowski has a little magic left in him just before that. And then now we have Peyton Manning and then Andrew Luck. In all of the wind of change, the one thing that was consistent for the Colts was the simplicity and the tradition of their uniform. Now, I get for this, when you do the Indiana Knights and the other things, you buy into that. But I'm here to say, keep it at just that. Do just the one-offs of when you have to from the marketing standpoint for the league. Don't ever change.
Yeah, this is a league thing, by
I
the way.
understand. Now, when you say the rivalry uniforms, let me ask you this. Who is the Colts' rival?
Excellent question.
Because another measuring stick of how great a franchise you are is when you have a rival that the majority of that team's fan base would also reciprocate the sentiment. And it's the Patriots it's almost certainly the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is the Patriots, if you were to ask Patriots fans, the Colts would be like fifth on their rivalry list.
The Bills would probably be number one, right?
Or the Dolphins.
Yeah, but they've been in mediocrity for so long.
The Jets.
Same for them. They've been in mediocrity
Understood.
since Rex Ryan.
But you have, with the Jets, you have the Belichick factor. You have, there's a ton going on there. We'll ask Rhett Lewis. He covers the NFL for NFL Network and also Big Ten Network. We can get into college football with him as well. Big show lined up on a Football Friday. Rhett Lewis will be the first from the professional, to an extent, college standpoint. We'll talk to him with a couple of questions. For example, what did he see last night in Mendoza? That might be the first place we go with him. He joins us next.
starts now. It's Football Friday. Brought to you by Quality Supply and Tool, Indiana's largest Milwaukee tool dealer. On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Now, somebody points out to me on the text line, hey, Jake, last year both Super Bowl participants had alternate uniforms. I guess Seattle and New England, I mean, they basically each have had two. New England did totally change their branding and logo back in the day. They look kind of like a USFL team, and I'll be honest with you, I always thought the Patriots, I mean, I would say now normal helmet that the snapping the football Patriot is awesome. And then they went to that thing that just looks like a big sticker. It literally looks like a USFL team. I never really understood that new logo. The Seahawk, the color changed a little bit, but the Seahawk, it's still, I personally think the Seahawk is the greatest logo in the NFL. My apologies to Colts fans or whatever team you may be. They're all good logos, but whatever your favorite may be. Last night, did you watch, Eddie, any of the game between the Raiders? I can't believe that I watched it, and I can't remember who the Raiders played. Oh, the Texans, obviously, yeah. Did you watch any of it?
I had it on in here for a little bit, watched the first couple of drives of Fernando Mendoza, and then turned it on to the Fever game.
I think he was like 8 of 15, right? Something like that?
Yeah, he was running for his life pretty much all game.
Did you say we have Rhett, by the way?
Not yet.
Okay. Mendoza, it goes back to what we've always said. And I think he has an advantage. Let me tell you a little nuance of where I think there's an advantage for Fernando Mendoza. I know that I've discussed this before, but Alabama, there are so many quarterbacks that look prolific at Alabama, and then they get in the league, and you're like, man, they're just kind of a guy. A.J. McCarron comes to mind. Jay Barker, I don't think ever even played in the league. Tua obviously has had his moments. Jalen Hurts is elite. But Trevor Lawrence absolutely falls into the category of what I'm about to discuss. And that is that when you are coming out of a program that has elite separation receivers, it is really hard for you, I think, to acclimate initially to the NFL because of the fact that you are used to throwing to guys that already, by the time you go through your progressions, they're a step and a half ahead of where the defensive back is because of just natural athleticism and speed. And Alabama's got 5-star receivers all over the place. And Clemson, when Trevor Lawrence was there, had 5-star receivers all over the place. And so you are taking for granted that you don't have to think about collapse and close of window. Mendoza, one of the advantages that I think he will pay off for him is the fact that if you think about his favorite target, and there were a lot, but his favorite target would have been Elijah Surratt. And Surratt's advantage and what made him a great player, he is not a separation speed guy. He was a precision timing collegiate player of just running the perfect route, making the cut right at the perfect time, and then boom, there's that split second, and the ball's got to be there. So Mendoza, in terms of what he did collegiately, I think Mendoza had to condition himself, at least, I can't speak for how it was for him at Cal. I assume the same. But at Indiana, and this is no disrespect at all to Charlie Becker or, Omar Cooper. Cooper probably would be a little more the exception here, but neither one of those guys were, the level of separation that you see at other places for the most part. So he already, for Mendoza, the learning curve of that timing is going to be, I think, less the amount than it is for a lot of guys. But if you look last night at the pick six that he threw, he did not anticipate a route jump. And so he throws that, and then he gets into his typical thing of like afterwards, the interview. And I saw there were Raider fans that were like upset because they thought he should have been more upset after. I get it. His overly optimistic, refreshing. What is refreshing about Mendoza right now, if they don't win, is going to be a challenge at the NFL level because there's just different expectation. When you're the number one player selected in the draft, there is different expectation for you, for certain. Did you say, Rhett, he's at the drive-thru? Is that right?
He's in Germany, or was in Germany when he booked the appearance, and he's no longer in Germany, so his time zones were all confused. So he's tied up.
Literally? Do we need to send somebody over there?
No, not literally, Jake.
So is he still in Germany?
I don't believe so because he said when I booked the schedule. To be honest with you guys, I was in Germany.
And so he's not in Germany?
I don't think he's
so
in Germany.
He was thinking he was going to be on at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and in reality, he's like, wait a minute, I'm on the West Coast at 7 a.m. here. You just woke me up like you did Jake last night at 12:30 when you called?
Sure.
And I'm usually up till 4, so you were safe calling. I'd like to let everybody know. I'm going to look right here at the camera and say this. My name is Jake Query. My cell phone number is 317-523-9288. I'm nocturnal. So if you're ever in a situation where you'd like to chat, or you're in a situation where you are on the side of the road, unless you're planning on doing something nefarious to me and you're just luring me, you're more than welcome to send me a text at 3:48 in the morning and simply say, hey, man, what's up? And if there's some sport you'd like to discuss, the odds are very high. I'm willing to discuss them at 3:48 in the morning. But just simply text first, because if I'm asleep, that way it's safer. And it's not going to wake me up, and I don't get a lot of sleep. But Eddie last night did call, and it was very persistent to let me know that Eddie was calling. And then I answered, and literally, Eddie, I think what you said was just, what's going on?
Yeah.
Just driving home, and you wanted to chat, right?
Yeah.
So we're tabling Rhett Lewis is what you're saying.
Yeah, we'll try to get him next week.
What did you – the reason you called last night is because you were on your way home from doing the production, as the producer for the Fever Radio Network, and we haven't gotten into their game last night. I thought that was one that when I say this, and I was thinking about it as I was watching the game, there are going to be, and I don't know whether this is saying that Caitlin Clark is their most important player or Kelsey Mitchell's their most important player, but I'm going to give you a statement, and I want you to tell me whether or not you agree with it, okay?
Hit me. Like we're playing blackjack. Hit me.
I think the Fever, and last night was not a signature Caitlin Clark performance, but so I'm not necessarily saying it even regards to last night. But I think for the Fever, they are able to overcome an off night from Caitlin Clark with a higher percentage of success than they would be able to overcome an off night for Kelsey Mitchell. Caitlin Clark is probably their all-around best player, but I think in terms of being in a groove, Kelsey Mitchell is the one that they are almost most reliant on that because it is so consistent in terms of her production offensively that if there is a night where she is not feeling it or she's not in rhythm or she's not in groove offensively, that throws them into a sputter more so than Caitlin Clark or Leah Boston or anybody else because they have become, I'm not going to say reliant, that's the wrong word, but she is so consistent. I just think Kelsey Mitchell's offensive game and the production that she gives and her ability to score, you know, her movement away from the ball is so impressive. And she's a little Reggie Miller-esque in the fact of constantly working to get herself open. And then once she does so, her ability when she has that flash open to like her quick release. But I think that Kelsey Mitchell, I'm not saying that she's their most important player. I'm not saying that I think she's their best offensive player, truthfully. But to me, she is the most important cog in the wheel in terms of if she were to have an off night, I think that would so I guess that would say most important.
I would disagree.
Okay, go ahead.
Last night, evidence A. She had 37, and they lost by 6, and it wasn't particularly close in the second half. Like,
yeah, they were down 11 most of the half.
Yeah,
right?
like she still had 37. So if you're gonna say if in your case, if she's gonna have an off night, they're more reliant on her to score. Evidence A last night, she ties her season high, 37 points.
And they lose.
Yeah,
that's fair.
She's their best scorer. I do not think she's their best offensive player. Caitlin Clark is their best.
Well, yeah, because
Caitlin
Caitlin Clark is because she facilitates as well. I get that.
Yeah,
I
so
just
last night,
I thought last night Eddie was more indicative. I thought it was an off night from Caitlin Clark.
It was an off night from everybody besides Kelsey Mitchell.
Right.
Frankly, like they just didn't have anyone to show up. They had 28 rebounds as a team, 21 of them combined between Aaliyah Boston and Michaela Timpson. I think nobody was out there rebounding.
I think the thing about Kelsey Mitchell, and maybe I'm overstating that, but the most impressive thing to me about her is the Fever have become this franchise. I mean, everyone knows about Caitlin Clark, right? For good reason. I mean, obviously, understandably. And Sophie Cunningham now has emerged as this certain like social media darling away from the court. I mean, on the court, good player as well. Don't get me wrong. But, you know, she has become this transcendent star amongst the WNBA, even away from the court itself.
Yeah.
Aaliyah Boston is a former number one pick that is that has developed this outside shot and is, you know, a great player. It goes without saying. Kelsey Mitchell's the one that you just don't hear as much about. You don't see it, you know, Mac Engel, my buddy at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, going into that game last night because he covered the game, he asked me this question going into it. And I might have asked, he asked me, who are the 3 most popular players on the Fever roster? Caitlin Clark's clearly number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Amongst Fever fans may be different than amongst just fans in general, but I think you could make the argument that Sophie Cunningham is number 2.
I think she is number 2.
And then 3 is probably a toss-up between Mitchell or Boston, right?
I would say 3 is a toss-up between Boston and Lexi Hull.
Okay. Even better. And Kelsey Mitchell's the one that, like, I'm not going to say she's taken for granted, but what I love about Kelsey Mitchell is Kelsey Mitchell seems totally fine with that.
Yeah.
She literally is one that just, what's my role? What do I need to do? And she goes out and does it night in and night out. And it's amazing how not only consistent she is, but how consistent she is in the fact of her non-need of affirmation. I don't know that she wants or needs the headlines or the attention or the interviews or whatever else. She's just going to go out and, as the kids say, she just wants to go ball, right?
Go hoop.
Go hoop.
Get buckets.
And I mean, she is a walking bucket. I think she's incredibly fun to watch play. Now,
yes,
to your point, yes, Caitlin Clark's vision, her ball handling. I mean, there are so many different facets of Caitlin Clark that are incredible to watch. And Lexi Hull, if she's hot from the outside and gets going in a rhythm, it's fun to watch. But I just think there is a clinic to be watched in the way that Kelsey Mitchell not only performs on the floor, but also just her approach in general about it.
It's very professional,
to say the least.
Yeah.
Now, what is I have a question for you back to football that I need you to answer for me on the other side.
Okay. Is it about these Nike rivalry uniforms?
I'll let you know when we come back. And Kevin Bowen joins us 15 from now on a Football Friday and Fantastic Friday here at Aquarian Company on the Fan. Hey there, Jake Query for Super Light from Surfside. Super Light, 4 different sports drink flavors from the great folks at Surfside. And like Surfside, which you've come to know and love, that, of course, is the iced tea and vodka and the lemonade vodka. But Super Light, also no carbonation, so smooth and easy to enjoy. Absolutely perfect for this time of year. Just 90 calories, 2 grams of sugar. Look for it wherever you buy your favorite adult beverages. Super Light from the great folks at Surfside. Please be 21 and consume responsibly. Hey there, Jake Query for Love Heating and Air. Love-HVAC.com is the website. 317-353-2141, an official Heil Heating and Cooling dealer. Love Heating and Air. I've known them my entire life, literally. They treat me like family, but the most important thing is they treat every customer like family as well. When you have a company coming into your home, whether it be this time of year, you want to make sure that, say, you're already thinking about the cold weather and you're thinking, you know what, I got to get the furnace cleaned and checked, or your air conditioning, you want to make sure it continues to run as the dog days are here. You want a customer service-based company that's going to come in and be trustworthy and treat you like family. That's what you want in your home, and that's what you get from Love Heating and Air. An official Heil Heating and Cooling dealer, over 100 years in business in central Indiana. 317-353-2141 or love-hvac.com.
High school, college, pros, all day. It's Football Friday. Brought to you by Quality Supply and Tool, Indiana's largest Milwaukee tool dealer. On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Okay, so, Eddie, you are correct in the fact that I need, and I know that I get confused by these things, okay? Now, I'm somewhat, even though I'm a traditionalist, I am somewhat, well, that ended abruptly. Everything okay there?
Yep, I hit a button on accident.
Do you need to go back and play that and then like let it fade out like the kids do?
No, it's all right.
Okay.
It's okay.
I owe, to an extent, a debt of gratitude to the trend of the marketing uniforms that are designed. And I, as a kid, I would have absolutely loved it. So I understand why they do it, because then you got to buy more uniforms, more jerseys, whatever. Christian that we work with, right?
We like Christian. Very
Great
nice
guy.
fellow.
Oates is his last name, is that right?
Yes, that is right.
So Christian Oates, one day, I'm sitting there working, and he comes walking in.
Poor guy. He's probably had nicknames and made fun of his entire life.
Think so?
Yeah.
Like what, Oats and Honey?
Yeah, probably.
What other kind of oats would there be?
Well, there's Hall & Oates, right?
Nice. Good poll right there, right?
Quaker Oats?
Quaker Oats, yeah, of course. So, like Private Eyes, I'm watching him when he walks in one day, right? And he was wearing, I think, a Detroit Tigers hat, and I made reference to it, and he said, no, I'm actually a Blue Jays fan. I said, seriously? How are you a Blue Jays fan? He said, well, I loved their city uniforms. So so purpose served, right? So now I've got like a Blue Jay fan around to correspond with about this. And it's because I had bought my buddy Jeff Hester a Blue Jays city hat. He already had one. So I exchanged it for a Blue Jays hat, wore it, and then they went on their magic run last year to the World Series, which they won and got shorted. And so, I'm appreciative of the purpose of those uniforms. I get it. But I'm not I'm a little confused here on what the rivalry uniform means. Does that mean that you have to wear the uniform of your rival?
So it is for divisional games.
Now. And this isn't the first time they've done this, right?
So, for example, the Colts will wear their rivalry uniforms against the against the Texans week 3, the Jags week 8, the Texans week 11. So the Colts wear them 3 times.
They don't wear them against the Titans?
Does not appear so.
The Titans are not a divisional rival?
I guess so. I guess not.
Are the Titans so bad that they can't have rivals? Is that what this is?
I have no idea.
So, and they're going to release what they look like on Tuesday
at 10 a.m., yes.
So I can tell you right now, they're going to be blue jersey, like they wear like the black jerseys. It's going to be like the darker, more royal blue type jersey, the navy almost jerseys, and then gray pants. They don't mix it up a whole lot, right? Now, does that mean that the other teams are all wearing their rivalry uniforms as well during these matchups?
Yes.
So do the Titans, if the Texans are wearing them, so that somebody has to wear them against the Titans at some point, and the Titans get to wear their Oilers stuff,
The Jags.
Right? Oh, really?
The Jags will wear them against the Titans. Colts wear theirs 3 times, Texans twice, looks like Jags twice, and Titans wear them once.
So if you were to survey 1,000 Colt fans and ask them who is their rival, a better question would be this. If you were to survey, and this gets convoluted, so follow me here, okay? But I'm curious of people's answer. If you were to survey 1,000 Colts fans and say, who do you believe is the Colts' rival? What would be the top 5 answers? I think we could say most people would say the Patriots, right?
Yeah.
If you then said, okay, no Patriots are off the board, probably Titans, Jags. Would we include the Texans just because of the division?
I guess, and like the T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah, the ghost comments. Okay.
And then showing up in the clown, right?
That's what I meant, the clown mask, yeah.
Yeah.
So then the 5th would be, and again, you've got to go back to the AFC East days. I mean, maybe the Bills or the Dolphins, maybe. But of those 4, here's the catch to my question. Of those 4, Patriots, Titans, Jags, Texans, if you were to survey 1,000 fans of those franchises, which one would have the highest percentage that would claim the Colts as their rival? Would it be the Titans?
Probably. Yeah.
I think it would be the Titans because the very first playoff game that the Colts hosted was against the Titans, the Eddie George game, looking up at the video board as he ran away from the defense. You know, the allegations of the pumped-in crowd noise by the Titans, Peyton Manning, their beloved son, or adopted son, borrowed son, playing all of that. I mean, the Jaguars, they were, I remember Bob Lamey, the Jags are getting chippy. There was this weird, you remember that?
That's a pretty good one.
You remember that?
That's a good one, Jay. Nice job.
Yeah. Manning drops looks. There's a cheap hit there. The Jags are getting chippy. I remember that. Like, there was this weird, like, 3-year period with John Henderson and where there was, like, kind of this bad blood. And then the Texans, just because they've battled for the Texans kind of took over and won the division a couple of years after things fell off. Andrew Luck's from Houston, I guess. But I'll ask Kevin Bowen. Kevin going to join us on the other side. We'll ask him that, and we'll also get just an elaboration on observation, including the big question that is hanging over the Colts right now. Kevin Bowen from the morning show is going to join us other side on a Football Friday here at Query & Company on the Fan.
Huddle up. It's Football Friday. Brought to you by Quality Supply and Tool, Indiana's largest Milwaukee tool dealer. On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
We will go to South Bend coming up. A little over an hour. Tom Noy will join us. We'll also talk a little high school football with Kyle Neddenrip as football season is here. Even though it is still gorgeous outside, sunny, warm, and etc. But part of just kind of knowing that we're transitioning into football season out of the summer is the fact that no more. The Colts at Grand Park in Westfield, drop like Grand Park. As a matter of fact, not just for this season, but in totality. Exactly right, Eddie. They were all blaring that as they were leaving yesterday, knowing they were heading back to West 56. A little different than the way it used to be in terms of camp, but plenty to get to in terms of like phase number one and just recapping all of it. So joining us now on the Schwab Men's 2-in-1 hotline, he is, of course, with the Fan Morning Show and one of the key Colts writers for this radio station in particular, Kevin Bowen joining us. And Kevin, I'm going to begin with this before we get to just kind of the summary that you were talking about of what has taken place so far. Eddie and I were just talking about this with the release on Tuesday of the rival uniforms, is what it's called, for rivalry games. The Colts' key rival. Now, I don't know if you heard me mentioning this, okay, but I've got 4 teams here. If you surveyed 1,000 Colt fans and said, who is the Colts' biggest rival, would you agree, Kevin, and feel free to join or to throw in a different name, but we basically said Patriots, Titans, Jags, Texans. Those are the 4 that would get the highest percentage of votes if you stopped 1,000 fans at a Colts game. Would you agree with that list of 4?
Yeah, I would agree. I think you might have the generation, maybe my age, a little disdain towards the Chargers just for the playoffs.
Not bad.
Falls, but yes, I would say those are the 4.
Okay, now, if you then turned around and asked 1,000 fans of each of those teams, which one would have the highest percentage of their fans that would claim the Colts as their rival?
I'd say the Titans would probably, I guess, going back to like McNair, George days. Yeah, I mean, I'd say probably most of the AFC South, honestly, just because the Colts did have a stranglehold on that division. But key word there is past tense on that, with now 11 years without winning the division. Boy, Patriots, you just feel like it's just lost all of its luster.
Totally. I think Patriots fans would tell you there was a Brady-Manning rivalry, but not a Patriots-Colts rivalry.
Yeah. And I get, like, whatever, Vrabel was on those teams, and weirdly, Josh McDaniels is back there, but still, I think that's probably lost a lot of it.
Speaking of lost, did we lose Kevin? There we go. Okay.
I would say just the AFC South. I don't know, Broncos? Would Broncos be in there?
Oh, that's not bad.
No.
You got the game where Marvin Harrison fell down and then got up and kept running. And then, of course, obviously you factor in the first Monday night. By the way, largest margin of victory in Monday Night Football history at the time, 55-23 in the Colts' first Monday night game. And then, of course, the Manning aspect. I mean, it goes without saying, the Peyton aspect. But the Broncos have such a rabid and old-school fan base that hate the Raiders and the Chiefs. So, you know what I mean? I don't know how many. But, yes, Colts fans, I get it. I think Titans because when they first moved to Tennessee, it was during the time that the Colts were at their apex, and so that was the benchmark. And I shouldn't say that. I mean, the rise of it, though, the George, the McNair, when they had their first breakthrough teams, at first they had the better of the Colts, and then obviously the Colts became the benchmark after that. So probably Tennessee, you're right. All right, let's get to this.
I would add just one more, too. Like, when you bring up Colts-Broncos, I think it's one of the least talked about, rather notable games in, I guess, modern-day Colts history, and that was them going to Denver and beating Peyton Manning in the playoffs. Like, we don't talk about that game very much because the next week was like a playoff.
Eddie, did you say that Kevin was in a basement? Is that it? Kevin, are you at the bottom of the ocean?
Do you got me now?
I do now, yeah.
Okay, sorry. I don't know why. I'm doing my normal little phone trick. I am driving, so maybe I'm just in a bad area here. Is this any better?
It's better, yeah. You're okay now, yeah.
Yeah, Vontae Davis in that game, low-scoring game. I mean, hell, you beat Peyton Manning in a road playoff game. Like, if you explain, like, Colts Broncos history to someone that has no idea what's going on, they'd be like, oh, wow, that sounds like really notable, and yet it's a game we just don't really talk about.
Yeah, they actually have had some pretty big games over the years, now that you think about it, now that you discuss it. But, Kevin, I felt like it, and perhaps this is indicative of that. Here it is. I mean, I guess we'd say halfway through camp, or a third of the way, whatever it works out to when you look at the preseason in totality. But I guess it's not a bad thing that we're sitting here talking about what would be the most applicable rivalry team or rivalry jersey, because this has been a camp for the most part void of major storylines. That's not a bad thing. But let's begin with the positives. If the most positive takeaway that you have from what you've seen so far in camp would be what?
I mean, definitely Daniel Jones taking every single starting rep. I mean, if you add up the 13 practices, I mean, you're talking probably 200 some reps. And he took every one. His offensive line was intact for all of them. Nobody sat due to injury. I think one time Jalen Travis got benched for a false start, but that was only for one snap. So, yeah, I just think that battery, if you will, your O-line and your quarterback, obviously your quarterback being the more important one considering, his injury history and all of that. But, yeah, I would certainly point there. DeForest Buckner would maybe be next on the list. I mean, his activity, I thought, was more than I expected, frankly, entering camp. He didn't do a ton of work, but, I mean, he was out there 10, 11, 12 of the days and doing something. And, week one, I would expect him at the very least to be used in, pass rush situations, if not more. So, yeah, I would point to some of that stuff.
Speaking of Daniel Jones, Will Carroll sent me this last night. People Magazine has some big expose article. I don't know how recent this is, about Daniel Jones and his girlfriend. Actually, I take that back. This is from like the beginning of camp. Are you familiar with her? Should I know who this is?
Is she she's got the funky last name, right? Is she related to the big doctor, Elatraj?
That must be it. It says, because here, Will being in the medical aspect of it, he sent it to me and just said, do you know who this is? Nicole Elatraj, is that right? Is that how you said the last name?
Sounds right. And I believe, I assume it's her father, I think, did the Anthony Richardson surgery. That would be the shoulder. I don't know.
No, wait a minute.
Track of all of them.
So what you're getting at here, let's make sure that we're clear here. Okay, do you happen to have the breaking news sounder by chance, Eddie? Maybe I'm the last one to connect these dots. So what you're saying is there's the possibility that the social media influencer that Daniel Jones is dating is actually the daughter of the guy that was in charge of repairing the shoulder that would be the thing that stood between Daniel Jones and the starting job?
I think that's right. Now, given Daniel Jones's injury history, I'd be curious if Dr. Elatraj has ever, seen him as a patient, which would be quite something that potentially your future father-in-law is examining you. But, that sounds like a scene of Grey's Anatomy.
It is important to note that they did go to Duke together.
I did know that. She was a Duke athlete, right?
Yeah, she played volleyball.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. See the things that we unearth around here, Kevin, and the dots that we connect.
I remember when didn't you ask Alec Pierce about Sydney Sweeney one time?
Yeah.
You're always digging for good relationship gold.
That's right. And I think Alec Pierce was actually the one that was the most disappointed to report that, no, in fact, he did not date Sydney Sweeney. Right?
Yeah, I think you expressed some of that, yeah.
Speaking of that, what can you tell us? What is the latest in terms of what you have been able to see regarding Alec Pierce?
Yeah, so it sounds like Tuesday, potentially, we could be seeing, him on the practice field. At least that's the next date in my mind, probably is the better way to put it. Shane Steichen said yesterday that he watched Pierce work out in the indoor facility earlier this week, felt like it was a really good workout, and that he should be back soon. In Steichen lingo, that's quite a lot for him to say. So, yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week, we'll try to mimic a regular season week. They'll be back at the facility. The media can watch, though, so we'll get a glimpse into if he's out there. Again, they play next Saturday, too, so back-to-back Saturdays. they play. So, yeah, that's kind of the next date on the calendar. And, again, once we get through this weekend, that'll be 3 full weeks he'll have left to try and ramp it up for week 1.
In terms of Keenan Allen and getting out there yesterday, I know you guys talked about this morning, but did limited reps for him, correct?
Yeah, so I think the thought was he just do individual. I mean, he didn't do a ton of team reps. I think he took 4 of them, but still, he did do something. And then Tuesday, again, will kind of be more of a ramp-up period. I did have to laugh at one moment. He was going through positional drills with, obviously, the other wideouts, and they do a ladder drill, working on their footwork, and he kind of stumbled over the last bit of the ladder drill, and his cleat kind of raked the ladder up, and, Reggie Wayne uttered the phrase of, well, I can tell it's his first day for everyone, which I thought was kind of a funny moment, and clearly I think Reggie was trying to, make sure that everyone heard that. So, maybe a little rust to knock off for the 34-year-old.
When you look at Keenan Allen, Kevin, his numbers are almost identical to the production of Michael Pittman Jr. the last 2 years. I mean, it's almost eerie how much the numbers are the same. Do you think schematically is he kind of the same guy as well? In other words, assuming that Pierce is able to go and that Pierce is back to 100% or what we expected of him that got him the contract, does this offense really kind of look almost in mirror to the one that was humming along at record potential pace before the Daniel Jones injury, assuming everybody's healthy? It seems as though it's just kind of replug and play. Fair statement?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of merit to that. I mean, stylistically, while Pittman and Allen are kind of the same, height and weight, or at least similar, Pittman a little bit more. I do think Pittman's a little bit more of kind of your bruising power forward, if you could basketball analogy it, and Allen's got, despite being bigger, he's got a little bit more finesse to his game, and again, a super cerebral player in how he gets open, where, Pittman, I think people kind of labeled him a tight end in a wide receiver's body, but yes, I think for the most part, that checks out.
1 to 10 scale, Kevin, and I'm going to say for me it's a 7. Okay, and so feel free to tell me if I'm wrong in my number. 1 to 10 scale, what is your level of concern about the long-term health and availability of Charvarius Ward?
Yeah, I'd put it at a 9.5.
Okay.
Yeah, I think anytime, I guess 2 things. Anytime a guy has 3 concussions in 1 season of football, I think right then and there you're obviously concerned. And then I would add, when you have a player that so openly, and I know he did it with you, so openly explains how close he was to retire, and I believe he used the number 85%. He thought he was retiring at the end of the season. Right there, those 2 boxes, I think, cause for me to be so close to 10. And then I'm not even taking into consideration just the tragic nature of losing his young daughter a few years ago, and the family element to him. He's again spoken very openly about that. And also, I don't think you can totally ignore, this is not a guy that's 1 year into the league chasing NFL money. Yes, he's a former undrafted free agent, but he has made great money in the NFL. He has reached the pinnacle of the game. Individually, he's been an all-pro, and team-wise, he's won a Super Bowl. And again, these are other things he's been open and talking about. So I think when you add up all of that, that's why I probably put it at as high as I do.
Well, Kevin, the other thing that I think is of concern to an extent is, in those open discussions, like when I talked to him, he was open about the fact that really, I hate to say this because it sounds like I'm picking on him, but if I recall correctly, the only person in his inner circle that basically had the conversation with him about the merit of returning to play football was his agent. I mean, he basically said that everybody in his family was saying, look, you got your money. Why? And his agent was the one that said, if there's still that fire in you, you got to go back and chase it. And so he did. But just the slightest hiccup, Kevin, to me, I worry about, and understandably so, whether or not that forces an athlete to then be reminded of the challenge of rehab, physically speaking and mentally speaking, and that may then be the final push for him, right? Because have they given any indication as to what the injury or timeline is?
No, back pain is the label that they've used. We're now at, I think, about a week and a half. He was present for the 2 joint practices. He wasn't present over the weekend when they first got back from New England, but he was watching the last couple of days. So, yes, he is. And I would also add this, I guess to get away from maybe him individually, I think he's such a vital piece to this season and that cornerback group in general. I will say, to add to another, surprise or positive, I kind of forget how you labeled the first question, but I think Justin Wally was outstanding during training camp. Now, he's still yet to play an NFL game, kind of weirdly and oddly, because he's talked about so highly, and Lou Anarumo thinks super highly of him as well. But so he gives you more cornerback insurance, but still, it's just one of those positions where it seems like you can never have enough depth.
So with that, you take Ward out, right? I mean, Wally's your essentially your nickel. So without Ward there, how do things move up in terms of the depth chart of their defensive backfield?
Well, I think if everyone else is healthy and not suspended, which there's a reason why I say that, I think Wally would then be your other outside corner. They'd actually move him from nickel to outside, so he'd be opposite Sauce Gardner. And then I think Cam Taylor-Britt would then slide in as your nickel. He is a free agent signing from Cincinnati. Again, ample history with Lou Anarumo. Had a very roller coastery time in Cincinnati. Lou actually benched him on a couple of occasions. Battled a pretty serious foot injury last year, but he has been available and healthy here through camp. But he is also suspended for a reckless driving incident last year, so he is suspended for the first game of the season. So, if you're talking 16 games, I think that's kind of how it looks. If you're just talking week 1, then you got maybe a few more questions. But, yeah, I think they really like Wally's versatility and what he can offer there. And, for those who are out at the joint practices, I thought him and Drake London had some super competitive moments. He's the one that picked off Tua on Wednesday and returned that for a touchdown. So I know that was a pretty controversial pick and a very anti-Chris Ballard pick in terms of how he usually drafts corners when it happened. But, yeah, for a guy that's never played an NFL game, he is certainly impressed.
How big is this game against Atlanta for Riley Leonard?
Yeah, I think it's big. I think it's big. I think last week for Richardson was bigger, I guess if you want to compare the two, because I thought Richardson was behind in the competition. But, yeah, Leonard gets his chance. Richardson had his opportunity last week and obviously got off to, a bit of a rocky start, but then performed quite well. And I didn't think Leonard did anything of note. Now, granted, he was with a lot of the threes, and now he'll be with the twos coming up tomorrow. It does sound like this battle will continue next week. And, again, without Daniel Jones playing in the preseason, my expectation is you would play both Richardson and Leonard again against the Lions. So I don't view it as last-ditch effort and, final shot. And, again, I think all three will make the team. I guess it's more of just, again, slotting who is your game day backup versus who is your emergency quarterback.
Kevin, that's part of why I asked, and I hate to say it this way, but, Riley Leonard, I think by all account, Kevin Bowen's my guest, by the way. You hear him in the morning, obviously, on the Fan Morning Show with James Boyd. He's on the Swabman's 2-1 hotline. Kevin, by all account, the backup job was Riley Leonard's to lose. I hate to say it that way, and I'm not saying he lost it. Maybe it was more just that Anthony Richardson kind of re-earned it. But if that's the case, if Riley Leonard can't, when he's up against a guy who requested a trade that we know the whole history with Anthony Richardson, if you lose your job to that, is it not then, do the Colts not then start to explore, look, is there a veteran out there that we're more confident in plugging in as our emergency quarterback? Is Riley Leonard potentially in danger of not making the roster if he does not have 2 solid outings here to bounce back a little bit?
I don't think that. No, I just watched Cooper Rush for the Falcons, and he was horrible as their third quarterback. I don't, I think having a third quarterback that makes you sleep somewhat well at night is just kind of wishful thinking. He's a 6th-round pick. It's in his second NFL season. I don't think, maybe we have grander expectations for him because, he played at Notre Dame and he, had a flash or two last season and he, helped lead Notre Dame to the national title game. But I just still kind of view him as, he's still a developmental guy and I don't, unless you have Gardner.
I believe he's talking about Gardner. There we go. He's back.
Just because Jacoby Brissett now has turned into a starter, I guess, in this league for the Cardinals. So, I think, again, come August 30th, I'd be very surprised at roster cuts if Riley Leonard and or Anthony Richardson was on the cut list.
Kevin Bowen will have it all covered, the Falcons and the Colts coming up this weekend. And for the Falcons, Kevin, not that anybody cares, but, I guess because you have Michael Penix Jr. still that is there, Tua, as I mentioned earlier, Tua looks more like Wanna, right? Like he's half what he used to be, right? In terms of his, we're seeing the beginning of the end here in terms of Tua.
Yeah, I watched Tua this week, and my thought was, how was he ever any good in this league?
Oh, you're going to go viral again for that one, Kevin.
Yeah, I thought he wasn't any good.
Yeah, by the way, what was the video where you went viral?
Yeah, I basically said that about Tua. I think I might have used the word horrific.
Absolutely horrific.
Absolutely horrific. Thank you, Eddie. So actually, I went viral, but the Falcons fans were loving it because I think they want Penix.
Gotcha. And this was on which platform that you went viral?
Twitter. Yeah. Twitter sphere. So went on Atlanta radio this morning. They were, very, very curious about that. Now, Michael Penix, just to remind everybody right now, is still not doing any 11-on-11 work. He tore his ACL late last season, so he's left the 7-on-7 work. And frankly, I don't think he was much better yesterday. Jalen Carlisle picked him off. So, I think Atlanta's got a quarterback problem.
So Kevin, by the way, speaking of problems, I have a theory on this. You ready? Because I know that you do, each of the videos you put them out on YouTube, Instagram, all of it. I feel like Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it now, I feel like it's like dying, like it's dead now. Am I wrong? Like it seems like the engagement on it is far less than what it once was. Am I wrong?
Maybe on that. I mean, you're talking to the wrong guy. I'm so addicted to Twitter.
I like it. I enjoy it, but
yeah, it's kind of it's probably bad to say, it's kind of my newspaper, if you will, present day, and get all my Notre Dame info and all my stupid golf stuff and everything else. So, maybe a little bit from a, interaction, or obviously the For You tab is a whole different world. But, if you stick to the old following tab, I think there's a semblance of normalcy you can find there.
Kevin, I logged into our text groove so I can see, messages as they come in. Why am I seeing a ton of Kevin is an a-hole messages on the text line?
Well, you'd have to dial up Mark Dykton for that, and I don't want to put words into Mark's mouth, but, at one point he was explaining earlier today, and I guess this is a question for you guys. When you guys see your friends' parents, are you calling them Mr. and Mrs. still, or have you moved on to their first name?
Okay, interesting question, Kevin. Eric Barrett's mom, okay, Sally Barrett.
I thought you'd say Farkas or some of your other North Central comrades. I'm trying to think of their names.
And Farkas, yes. Sally Barrett, when I was probably 35, I said, as I have always done, "Hey, Mrs. Barrett." And she literally grabbed me and spun me around and said, "I want you to look me right in the eyes and say Sally 4 times." And I thought, well, if I do, does the Candyman appear? Like, what happens if that happens? And she was like, and I thought it was, Kevin, I've always thought, but no, like it's still the parental role, right? And then she said to me, she's like, "But you are now a grown adult. And so I don't want to feel, older, but having a grown adult call me Mrs. makes me feel that way. So I'm begging you to call me Sally." And I'm like, you know what? You're right. And that was tough. I still call Dr. White Dr. White. I never call him Eugene. That would be weird, right?
Sure. Yeah. So this is how it all started. Mark Dykton referenced that he actually knew his father-in-law first. And I was like, oh, that's kind of odd. Can you explain more? And he explained that he knew Ashley, his current wife, her older sisters first. And when I was listening, I thought I might have heard that he really knew Ashley's older sister or two.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you kind of catch my drift
yeah,
there.
yeah,
and
sure.
I don't think Mark was too happy about that, hence the text line, Mr. Eddie Garrison. So, yes, to secure a spot in our fantasy football league, Mark asked for listeners to refer to me in a word that I don't believe we're allowed to say on these airwaves.
Now, let me ask you this. I did not meet per se or know per se Shannon's father before I knew Shannon, but I knew of him, and I bagged his groceries once and asked him what he thought of Jay Edwards, and he told me he thought Jay Edwards would be a second-round NBA pick, and I was so obsessed with Jay Edwards that I intentionally bagged his meat along with his detergent, which is like the biggest violation of all time because I was so angry I sabotaged his groceries. But I think knowing the future father-in-law because you might know multiple daughters is a bigger infraction, correct?
I'm just picturing you and Donnie Walsh, and all of a sudden you throwing in the old Tide with the lovely New York strip he was wanting to make for himself there.
I was less than pleased. I'm like, what does he know? What does he know? Jay Edwards is awesome. What does he know?
Yeah. Oh, boy, the milk wasn't double bagged. Shame that just happened to fall out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe Mark had a little Fantasyland action there. So, yeah. we were chatting about that this morning, and as Eddie is seeing scrolling through the text line, Mark was none too pleased.
Fair enough. All right, Kevin, we will be looking for the coverage against the Falcons. And if Tua has a bad game, be sure to mention it so you can go viral and do Atlanta radio again.
Have a great weekend, boys.
Appreciate it. Kevin Bowen joining us on the Suave Men's 2-1 hotline. We come back. It's a Friday. You know what that means. It means, and I'm telling you, once a week, twice a week, I get people that reach out to me and they make the comment about the fact that they are grateful either for the peace of mind they got from something we talk about every Friday or because of the proper first step that it forced them to take with something regarding their health that we do every Friday. We will discuss, and we'll do it next. Hey there, Jake Query for Chicago's Pizza. Chicago's Pizza, 19 locations in Central Indiana, 26 across the state. And right now, lunch buffet up and going. That means, and listen, you think that means they're just starting their day? No. They started their day this morning. First thing and they're making all of the dough by hand. The fresh hand-rolled breadsticks are right there for you, along with traditional pizza, deep dish pizza, and the salad bar, fresh with all the fixings on ice. You got the salad bar that has that ice and cool crisp to it, and then, of course, the pizza, hot and fresh every single day. Chicago's Pizza and their locations here in central Indiana. And do not forget, tonight, perfect night for pizza, family meal deal. 2 medium, 1 topping pizzas, and the fresh order breadsticks for just $25. Chicago's Pizza, where there's a story in every slice, started in 1979 right here in central Indiana. 26 locations across the state. Find one near you at chicagospizza.com.
Listen up. It's Football Friday. Brought to you by Quality Supply and Tool, Indiana's largest Milwaukee tool dealer. On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Franciscan Health has partnered with us for each and every Friday, the Feel Good, Good for the Heart Friday. And the most important aspect of this, a couple of aspects to it. Number one, I think that when you think about heart attacks, I know I've mentioned this before, but it's really important, an important message. And Franciscan notably said to me at the beginning of the year, they're like, Jake, you know, as we continue to move along in letting people know about cardiovascular health, the one thing that I think is often overlooked is, and I don't know why this is, but there's just kind of this notion or almost stereotype that heart attacks are a man's thing, right? And I think part of it is just the imagery throughout culture in general, arts and entertainment and whatever else, of whenever you see in a movie, it's always the male character that has the heart attack or dies from a heart attack, or in, you know, television, you know, the grabber, as they call it. And unfortunately, you know, coronary disease is a leading cause of death for women as well. And the real danger in that is the fact that the symptoms are different. And, you know, I remember when, in talking to my cardiologist and asking, man, it was so obvious to me what was going on. And I was a younger person, so that was an important factor here. But I remember my cardiologist saying, Jake, when the heart has an issue, it starts sending out its warning signals. But if you have things like visceral fat, or you have been a lifelong smoker, or genetically speaking, if those nerve endings are a little bit muted, it's harder for them to get. It's like sending out a cell phone signal from a concrete building as opposed to the open outdoors, so to speak. And so therefore, that's one of the things to be conscientious of when it comes to your heart. And from a woman's standpoint, so many of the symptoms that you hear people talk about, the tightness of the arm, the feeling of massive heartburn, the sweating, from a women's standpoint, the symptoms are different. It's more like up in the shoulder. And I think it's stuff that a lot of women are like, oh, I thought I had a pinched nerve or whatever else. And so the body doesn't have the same level of warning signs, and they're muted a little bit. That's why it's so important for the heart scan to get an idea about what it is that you are in terms of your roadmap of your cardiovascular health. And Franciscan Health does do not just a heart scan for just $49. It is super simple. It's non-invasive, but you get with it a heart health risk assessment that then kind of gives you the roadmap of where things stand for you in regards to your heart. And each Friday we discuss something from the positive side of sports. And, there's so many negative and polarizing things going on out and about out there that sometimes it's hard. And this time of year, I look forward to this. And I was thinking about this morning. Now that school is back in session, high school football getting underway beginning tonight. Kyle Nenrip is going to join and talk about that. But I reach out to each and every school, each and every athletic department, and tell them, look, I want to know your feel-good stories. And that goes for all of you. Before I tell you about this week's story, my email, of course, the easiest way to remember my email, I could give you my work email, but my personal one's easier to remember, which is jakequery@me.com. And if you ever forget what the email address is, just remember my two favorite people, Jake Query and me, right? jakequery@me.com. But the stories of the underdog kid at school, the manager that's getting an opportunity, or somebody who just overcomes an obstacle to find, and everybody's level of victory and success is different. Sometimes it's the kid that simply goes in and getting in the game is the equivalent of hitting for the cycle. Those are the stories that I love to share and love to tell. And notably, when it comes to high school athletics, now that school's back in session, if you have a story like that, send it to me. One of them for today is simply a story that kind of a follow-up on what we have been following for the last month or so. And I want to, again, tip my cap and wish, as the season gets underway here, the very best of luck to the kids at Elwood High School. It's one thing to have kids that don't want to play football or don't want to get involved in a sport for a number of different reasons, all of which I understand. But Elwood has a pretty proud football program. We've talked about this in the past, had their coach on, and they just didn't have the numbers this year. Just didn't have the numbers. And their coach sent out basically a plea saying, look, this is a proud program and tradition, and football is about more than just going out and trying to win games. I think they know they're probably not going to win a game. But they needed, he thought, 22 players in order to field a football program. They got it up to 21. They had, I think, one actually that moved out of school and then two that decided they didn't want to do it. At one point, they got back down to 17, I believe. And I just saw this week that their head football coach, they're going to give it a go. They have 18 kids, 18 of them. And I saw the team photo, and it was 18 kids that were signing up, some of which you can tell by looking at them probably have never played football because they're not overly big kids, a lot of freshmen, smaller kids. But it's about the fact that they saw within their community and within their school a need to rally together. And so they said, you know what? We're going to do this. And there have certainly been schools that we've seen. Edinburgh Academy comes to mind that went on long winless streaks. You see the score sometimes on a Saturday morning, and you're like, oh my gosh, somebody lost last night in football, 77-0, or whatever it may be. And that might be the fate for Elwood. That might. But the fact that those kids came together and bought into the fact that maybe this isn't the year where they get wins, but their school needed to field a team, their program needed to continue, and their coach wanted kids to learn the values of high school athletics, the values of teamwork, the values of taking your lumps and coming back and trying to improve little by little. And that's what they're going to try to do. Now, there are going to be some games. They have already had a few games where they said, look, we don't know that we can play against that team. And so they're free to try to find somebody else on the schedule if they can. And I think they're trying to modify the schedule a little bit. But the fact that they have the kids that are ready to go out there and learn a new sport and learn the new things. And I think right now in the state of Indiana, that's important, especially in that area, geographically speaking. If you know anything about Elwood, you know where it's located. You know that it's up in between, like, say, Anderson and Muncie and in that area. And you know that these are kids that are probably seeing on the regular the images and reading about the struggle that's happening in their community, not only there, but throughout central Indiana with the devastation of flooding that's taking place. And people just now that the water's retreated are just entering into the what would seemingly be emotionally impossible task of putting the pieces back together, of rebuilding the foundation of their homes and figuring out what was lost, what was swept away, what was kept. Probably in some cases, unfortunately, the loss of pets, other such, just devastating things. And yet, the communities of central Indiana will, as Hoosiers do, find a way to dig down and move forward. And the American Red Cross has been a part of that. This radio station's been a part of that, along with partnering with Fox 59 and CBS 4 and on our station website at 1075 The Fan and other companies that have stepped forward throughout central Indiana to lend their helping hand, and you can do the same. But I think what we have here is a group of young people in Elwood that when you look at their ability to come together and say, I'm not worried about whether or not we win or lose, but I'm worried about just making sure that we can continue to give the people of this community a team to come out and watch on a Friday night, something to get their mind off things. That, to me, in itself, to quote Gene Hackman, I don't care what the scoreboard says, right, Norman Dale, those guys are winners. And I just simply want to wish the best of luck to those players at Elwood and throughout central Indiana. It goes without saying in football, but Elwood notably, even if they only play 2 games this year, for their ability to step forward and rise to the occasion. I think there's a lesson to be had in all of it. A heart scan for just $49 can be done at Franciscan Health. You can always, of course, go to franciscanhealth.org/screening bundles. That's franciscanhealth.org/screening bundles. Or, for that matter, aside from if you have a great story that you want me to tell, if you want information about heart scans, you can always email me as well, jakequery@me.com. I am happy to get you all of the information. Speaking of high school football, Kyle Neddenripp going to join us coming up in the 12 o'clock hour. We'll talk collegiately on this Football Friday with Tom Noy from the South Bend Tribune about Notre Dame, who I think is a real front-runner for the college football national championship. But when we come back, a question from last night that I got to thinking about in watching somebody put on a prolific performance, but was it enough? We'll explain next.
You've been waiting all week. So have we. It's Football Friday. Brought to you by Quality Supply and Tool, Indiana's largest Milwaukee tool dealer. On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
So I was going to get back into the discussion about what Kelsey Mitchell did last night, a record-setting performance for the Fever, although it was not enough as they lose to the Dallas Wings. But Eddie, just as I was about to do so, you got in my ear to say that we have news from college athletics to report. Breaking news. Yes, sir?
The NCAA, Jake, has said enough is enough, and they finally got a win. They may have not won the war yet, but they certainly won at least this battle. This is from Pete Thamel. This is about a half hour ago. The class of 2022, so that would include Stephen Daly and Sam Alexis on the Indiana front. They lose the federal fifth season protection, meaning the class of 2022 high school graduates are not eligible for the fifth year eligibility going into this season.
Okay, so what does that mean for Stephen Daly, for example, the Indiana defensive lineman?
He cannot play.
And this was ruled in what court?
The 10th Circuit Court in Colorado.
I'm going to show my legal ignorance here. I watched a lot of people's court when I was a kid. Judge Wapner was pretty tough. And that Judge Judy seems to be, and then there's the other fella. Who's the other fella? Judge Joe Brown, I believe. And I watch my fair share of live PD, so I see a lot of people who on meth seem to know the law and recite it regularly when they're getting arrested. But I don't know. I've always wondered this, and I'm being actually serious when I ask this. From a legal standpoint, I mean, I obviously know how it works in terms of, I'm smart enough to know this. When you are an attorney and you are either defending a case or if you are stating your case or trying to claim your case as an attorney in the United States, what you always look for is precedent, legal precedent. Hey, this has already gone to court. This has already been decided. And based on that, the courts ruled on blank, which is applicable today. Okay? Now, with that said, you can appeal, and then ultimately it goes to if it is deemed to have enough merit to it, or, then it is heard by the Supreme Court. And their ruling is exactly that, Supreme. And I always get confused by this. Does this mean, like, for example, you said it was which court again? The Ninth Circuit Court of Colorado? Is that what you said?
Second Court, yeah.
Okay. So does that mean that the athletes now can look for and find, well, actually, there's a circuit court in West Virginia that ruled on our behalf? Because if I'm not mistaken, this door was opened by a court ruling, I believe, out of Tennessee that declared that they could be eligible. And now you have a court in Colorado that has said, no, that's not the case.
So the federal case was heard in Colorado, yeah.
Okay. So that was, and I'm going to show my ignorance here. How was it determined? Was it filed in Colorado? And if that's the case, can an appeal be filed in a different state?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, Jake, so
Right.
I understand the legalities of it, but I just know that, the Colorado court was the one that initially allowed the 5 for 5, giving all 2022 high school graduates a fifth year of eligibility. And then this ruling today at least gives them a temporary, no, you are not eligible for a fifth year.
Okay, so this means that Sam Alexis, for example, and Stephen Daly, and part of this, did you see, Eddie, and unless I was seeing, and anymore, you have no idea half the time when you see a report, you're like, is this real or fake? You know what? I thought I saw, I think it was BYU. Was it BYU that just got like a commitment or another year of eligibility for a player that had been with the Utah Jazz?
I don't know, but I know there were a couple players that were like granted a 5th year of eligibility yesterday that were like on NFL rosters competing in training camp that had played in preseason games.
That might be it. That may be what I mean. It becomes just a quagmire. And again, I go back to. I will admit to having mixed feelings on it. Because wouldn't I be a hypocrite if I sat here and condemned some student athlete for going back and continuing to play collegiately at the age of 30? Because I was in a graduating class of Indiana University at the age of 50. I mean, if it weren't for, and again, we could sit here and discuss and nitpick till the cows come home the fact that there's a difference between one that is going back to finish a degree and one that is going back simply to get more playing time. I get it. But that becomes a gray area of murkiness of actual intent. And we can sit here and say, look, you had 5 years to finish your degree and your eligibility. What are you doing? Except for that, why is it? Wouldn't it be hypocritical of me to sit here and condemn somebody to go back and enter the collegiate world once their professional career began, when in fact, that's exactly what I did? And furthermore, I had to do that because I screwed around and wasted my time the first 3 attempts at it. So who am I to sit here and say that a student athlete shouldn't be able to go back regardless of the age? Except for that, I also understand the fact that most people are going to say, Jake, you're assuming they're student in this. I get it. But we do live in a world, and the thing about this country that makes it great is that we champion and we applaud and we promote the aspect of the individual pursuit, of liberty and the pursuit of happiness and financial gain to an extent by any means necessary, right? And yes, it has become the wild, wild west. I get it. And that exhausts people. I get it. But largely, sometimes why it exhausts people is because it takes competitive advantage away perhaps from what their team needs, or it bucks the tradition of what they have been used to and watching. And at its core, fundamentally, shouldn't it be sure, whatever, as long as you're enrolled in school or you're taking a class or whatever, have at. That sounds absurd, I realize. This from Nick on the text line. Producer Eddie, Mr. Garrison, sir. Oh. I think the judicial ruling is awfully rough this late in the game. And with it this close to the upcoming season, it makes it even crazier. I hate this. I get
I agree,
it.
Nick.
I don't think – I think most people are at the point now of simply saying, look, just come to a decision and get everybody to agree on it regardless of what the decision is.
It's just exhausting.
It is.
Just put it in flat terms. Like, you have X amount of years, like it used to be. You've got 4 years to complete 5 or whatever it was. 5 years to complete 4.
I mean, this all, to be honest with you, the door was cracked open when you began making adjustments because of COVID.
Right.
And then it just became, man, how do you stop it now? Well, this guy got that, so I should get this, or this girl got that, and I should get that. You know who probably can, I would think, because he's a smart fella. That Tom Noy up in South Bend is a smart guy, right?
He is. Great dude.
He's a great dude. He's a smart guy, and he covers. And when you're covering Notre Dame football, you're covering it. Frankly, you are covering a program that has a little bit more probably scruple than a lot. So he can perhaps help us break all this down. But we are going to talk about the Irish and what Marcus Freeman has brewing in South Bend. We'll do it next.
Friday starts now. It's Football Friday. Brought to you by Quality Supply and Tool, Indiana's largest Milwaukee tool dealer. On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Flying along here on a Football Friday. Jake Query along with Eddie Garrison. Query and Company here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. By the way, if you do watch us on YouTube, you know, we are now on this show and this station. We like to pride ourselves as being multimedia. You got Kevin Bowen that had the video that went viral because he said that Tua was ineffective, or what was the wording he used? I can't remember the wording.
Absolutely horrific.
Yeah, horrific. And that went semi-viral. And then, you got the Insta. Eddie lives on the Insta. He's constantly posting videos on the Insta.
No.
J&V posts a lot of different content, but also YouTube, very important to what we do. And so we ask that if you watch on the YouTube, and for that matter, even if you don't, simply like the YouTube page and subscribe, the biggest one being the subscriptions. 107.5 The Fan is what you can search for, or Query and Company on YouTube. We will be happy to have you aboard. And, one of the real benefits of the YouTube part of it is not only do you see the crawl at the bottom that has information and other such things while you're watching, and you get to see some of the guests because we do a lot of them that you're hearing. You can see them also on Zoom. But you also get to check out the grin and just the overall tan, the radiance that is one Jake Query. Hi there. How are you? What do you think, Eddie? Does that look all right?
Just make sure to like and subscribe, people.
All
of our exclusive content.
There's only one drawback to watching on YouTube. And the only drawback is that behind me, there's a large screen with the photos of the different shows. And when I'm on this, and I'm a little bit neurotic about these sorts of things, the camera is placed such that you don't see the totality of the screen behind me. You can see my watch from the photo shoot that was done when I had my arm. And I don't know why every sports guy does, they cross their arms when they take photos. I think more I should do one with just the hands in the pocket, the more relaxed, hi, come into TJ Maxx and get yourself some Dockers. That look, you know what I mean? Did you say we have Tom?
Yes.
I'm sure he's thrilled to be joining us based on that segue. On the Swab Men's 2-in-1 hotline, and when you talk Swab Men, not just one and myself, but two of them, when you add Tom Noy from South Bend, and the South Bend Tribune to talk about the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Tom, first off, welcome back to the program. Always a pleasure. How are things up north?
I spend 25 minutes in hair and makeup. I take a shower, and now I try to connect, and my camera's not working. I'm not happy, but we'll press on.
That's the story of my life. I want to begin with this before we get into Notre Dame, because I do think that obviously this could be a very big year for them.
Yes.
I'm going to put you on the spot, Tom, because I don't know. So you are off the hook if you also are equally confused. We just found out that the latest round of As the World Turns of college athletics, a federal circuit court in Colorado has now ruled that those players that a couple of weeks ago were thought to be eligible in the class of 2022 high school class are now not eligible for this season. How does this work exactly? In other words, can the players just go back and find another? Well, guess what? We just found a circuit court in New Hampshire, and so that we're appealing. Do you know exactly, is this finality? Does it get appealed? Is this an ongoing saga? Where do things stand in this constant rotation?
It will never be final, and they'll keep exhausting every avenue to get these players eligible. It's funny you say that. I also, in my basketball duties, do freelance previews for Blue Ribbon Magazine. I filed my last Blue Ribbon Magazine preview this week with the University of Louisville, which got a pretty big addition in Seth Trimble, the guard from North Carolina. Pat Kelsey talked on and on and on about what a great addition he was. He's moving right into the shooting guard spot. He's playing 35 minutes a game. Guess what? He's not part of this injunction. So he enrolled on Monday. And right now, as we sit here at 12:06 on Friday, he's no longer a student at Louisville, but he may still yet be a student at Louisville. So fortunately, this does not cover Notre Dame football. This does not cover Notre Dame men's basketball, but it's an absolute train wreck for all these schools trying to figure out who the heck is on our roster for this coming season.
I just got done mentioning this, Tom, and I know that this sounds absurd, okay? But fundamentally at the core, there is a case to be made. I get it, right? In other words, I just got done talking about I went back to school at the age of 50 to finish my college degree because I, quite frankly, screwed around in the beginning, and now I'm playing catch up, right? If that's the case, and if we are a country that is supposed to allow for people life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, if that pursuit of happiness is playing a sport and you can stretch it out, and this is what's going to allow you the pursuit of a life even beyond that, then at the core, fundamentally speaking, who is a jurisdiction to say what can and can't be done, except for that we are also a society of governing rules? It just seems like the real nuance here is that sport, if it is to represent life, there is an aspect on both sides of the discussion here that represent different pillars of what we are supposed to be as a society. And it makes it very gray and murky. Or is that just me being the dumbest guy ever?
It's gray and murky, all thanks to the NCAA. Like they knew this 5-for-5 was coming down the college road eventually. And what were they going to do with the previous class, the class that just finished their eligibility, who felt like, hey, if you're going to implement 5-for-5, why didn't you implement it in March so we would know, okay, we've exhausted our eligibility, but guess what? We can go back to school and make a little money and do what we need to do and help ourselves financially another season instead of waiting until July and now August. And this will drag into September and October. There's just there seems an easier way to do this, but it seems like every time it comes to the NCAA, they choose, as Marcus Freeman likes to say, they choose hard. And now this is the result of what's happened with the NCAA and the 5-for-5.
Tom, you mentioned college basketball. Tom Noyes, my guest from South Bend. I have long felt this, and I mentioned this on a lark on the air like 12 years ago. And people that listen to this program are used to hearing me say it, perhaps, but I'm going to repeat it to you, and then I want you to tell me if it's the most insane thing out there, okay? I call it the Lids League. And what I mean, Tom, by the Lids League is you go into a Lids hat store in Butte, Montana, and you walk in, and it's going to have the same 10 or 12 universities represented by the hats they're selling that you would find in Tallahassee, Florida. They're going to have Notre Dame, Michigan, Ohio State, probably USC, Penn State, Georgia, Texas, Florida, Florida State, maybe Clemson. I think the NCAA has been so worried about the Lids League. In other words, the SEC and the Big Ten notably, finally just seceding and saying, we don't need any of this. We'll just go and run our own semi-pro league like the G League, except for that we're going to call it the Lids League, and just here we go. And the NCAA has been trying to delicately govern while at the same time being appeasing, expanding the tournament, doing other such things to accommodate those schools in fear of that secession. And that's what has led partially to this incredible murkiness of trying to play both sides. Now, am I on acid?
Probably.
Okay.
But it is true. Like the NCAA is so fearful of, we can't do this because this might happen. We can't do that because that might happen. And if we decide we're going to make a ruling, there are going to be lawsuits. And every lawsuit that is, and every motion that's filed, it seems like the NCAA caves. Like we're so far off the tracks of what college athletics are. And the NCAA has to just look at itself and say, sorry, we really, wherever this thing went sideways, we really messed this thing up. And it's not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse and more convoluted.
And by the way, for the record, I'm not actually on acid, just so you know. Never have been, actually, Tom. Okay, let's get to this. And I'm going to close it out with a college basketball question again. But the real reason that we wanted to have you on, and I always appreciate it and would look forward to having you on sporadically throughout the year, because I think Notre Dame is going to be really good. And Marcus Freeman has what appears to be a loaded roster, and I think it starts with quarterback. What did you see over the course of year number one at the quarterback position where they improved and matured, and where Carr was a better player end of year than beginning of year a year ago?
It was CJ Carr learning what life is like as a frontline college quarterback. Like people forget, CJ Carr's on all these lists. He's on the Heisman list. He's on the potential top 5 NFL draft pick list. CJ Carr has a grand total of 12 starts as a college quarterback, all 12 last season, his first year as the starter here. And it was him learning what he could do, what he could, where he could be really good, what he needs to learn, do better. Like, don't take the shot all the time down the middle of the field, even if it might be there. Go over the middle and live to play a couple more downs and then take the big shot. So I think that was his learning process, and it was the learning of how to become a really good college quarterback. He was good last season, trying to figure everything out with everything thrown at him. And oh, by the way, you start 0-2, the pressure's really on. I think you'll really see CJ Carr be more of a tactician and be more of a surgeon-like quarterback this year because he understands what he can do and maybe more importantly, what the guys around him can do.
They lost, obviously. Any good quarterback, no matter how good they are, Tom, they need backs behind them to keep defenses honest. How will Notre Dame be? Let's begin with this in the running game.
Aeneas Williams will not make people forget about Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, but he'll be able to compensate and say, okay, Notre Dame is going to be okay in the run game. He'll be able to run it. He'll be able to maybe catch it out of the backfield more than those guys did. And he's a guy that's just been waiting to get his shot. Like he was not happy with his role last year being behind Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love. And they're 2 number 1 NFL draft picks. How many carries are going to go around? Everybody thought he was going to transfer and go take the money somewhere else and go take a bigger role. But he stayed here because he believes he's got something to prove. Can he rush for 800, 900 yards in this offense of Mike Denbrock's with CJ Carr at the controls? I'd say absolutely he can.
When you talk about, Tom, CJ Carr and, just learning everything that goes into being a big time, I mean, there's no bigger program than Notre Dame, right, in terms of spotlight. Learning everything that goes into that. Marcus Freeman was, we're not going to say he was the accidental head coach. That's unfair. But he wasn't expected at the time that he became the head coach. Nobody knew that he was going to be the head coach. And it's man, the time does fly by, right? I believe this is year 6, I believe, for him?
5.
Okay, so where has he matured? Or has he? Were there areas that he had to grow with and understand being the head football coach at Notre Dame?
Just understanding what this job is. Like, it'll eat you up if you let it. I think he's been outstanding in not letting the outside forces and not letting the outside noise inside the walls of what is now Shields Hall. They're brand new $200 million football only facility that they're finishing up moving into this month. It was hard for him the first year. And when you start 0-2, really 0-3, if you go back to the Oklahoma State Fiesta Bowl that he lost as the interim head coach, the pressure is enormous and you're going one or two ways. You're either going to sink or swim. And he was able to figure that out. Now, that said, they have gone 0-2 in 3 of the last 4 years to open. So I think and it's still a process of him learning of what this job entails, who he could be, what it's like coaching the type of kid that he gets here at Notre Dame. It's an ongoing process for him. And when that process ends, I think you're going to see Marcus Freeman become a coach in the NFL.
One thing he's done, Tom, and I don't want you to correct me if I'm wrong, because I may well be, okay? So many of the things that made Notre Dame unique and were advantages going all the way back. I mean, whether we're talking about, even Newt Rockne into Ara Parseghian into, Lou Holtz, I mean, all the way through, and the different great coaches that they've had over the years. Especially of late in the Lou Holtz era, let's say, the exclusive television contract, the branding, the theological affiliation, the connection to the Catholic Church, the international branding of Notre Dame were all recruiting advantages for them. But Now, a lot of those advantages, I think, were kind of diluted. Now everybody's on national TV. You can go, you can go play at Montana State and your parents can watch every single. You can go play in Russia and your parents can watch every single game if you want. And so some of those things, and then the academic aspect of it, all of it has been diluted a little bit. And Marcus Freeman, to me, I can't put my finger on exactly what it is, but he gives it, again, a jolt of an it factor that I don't even think a Brian Kelly necessarily had. There's just something about his vibe that makes it look like it would be a cool program to be a part of. Is that a tangibly noticeable thing?
Yes, that was the word I was going to use. Marcus Freeman has made Notre Dame football and being at Notre Dame cool. And for the longest time, it wasn't cool. It was, and some of it is still there, the hatred and disenchantment of not being in a league. And oh, look, Notre Dame gets to go to the playoff this year automatically if they're a top 12 team. Well, that's great, but they should be a 12-0 team, not a top 12 team this season. So he has made Notre Dame cool, but we saw how we see how easily that thing flips where. It was Notre Dame was cool to everybody in 2024 when they went to the national championship game and lost to Ohio State. And it was like everybody loves Notre Dame. And then when Notre Dame got left out of the playoff and said, you know what, we have too many opt-outs and we're not going to a bowl game in 2025, everybody hates Notre Dame now. So whether they wear a black hat, whether they wear a white hat, it's a tough job to do. And I don't think anybody in the country, given this day and age where we are in 2026, could have done a better job and continues to do the job that Marcus Freeman's been able to do here.
What was the Notre Dame reaction of Tom Noy is my guest from the South Bend Tribune? What was the reaction from the Notre Dame standpoint of Curt Cignetti's comments about, just the scheduling with Notre Dame and fine, we'll play them, but they got to come down here twice and et cetera?
Get in line. Like everybody has a comment about that with Notre Dame. Like whether it's, Texas Tech or an SEC school or a Big 12 school saying, nobody should play Notre Dame unless they join a conference. And again, Curt Cignetti has a point, except we kind of overlook this. What's the one reason why Notre Dame was able to get USC back on the schedule in 2030? Because Curt Cignetti in Indiana called in Notre Dame and said, that series, we don't want that series. Can we get out of it? Notre Dame said, here's what it's going to cost. IU said, fine, that's it, we're out. So it's kind of comical and kind of a clown show for Curt Cignetti to say, you've got to come play us twice in Bloomington, where you had a series in 2030 and 31, and Indiana was the one that said, you know what, we'd rather go play Western Illinois or whoever they're going to schedule.
And that's the thing. Go ahead, Eddie.
The thing that I want to add to this is, how much of it is Indiana and how much of it is the Big Ten? Because the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 12 have all stated that their teams have to play another Power 4 school or Notre Dame in their non-conference schedule, whereas the Big Ten, they don't have that rule in place.
As long as they have that rule, Big Ten teams are gonna try to maximize it and say, we need to do everything possible. And that's one of the reasons why USC is not on the schedule this year. We need to do everything possible to make our non-conference schedule as easy as it can be so we can get in this playoff. It's all about the playoff. Now, Notre Dame does the opposite. Notre Dame has not opened at home to start a season. Take away the COVID year in 2020 when they opened against Duke. But I can't remember off the top of my head when the last time they opened at home. This year, they're going to Lambeau Field to play Wisconsin. Last year, it was Miami in South Florida. The year before that, it was Texas A&M at Kyle Field. So Notre Dame doesn't look at it. I think this is another year where they're not playing an FBS school, Tennessee State or whoever. Like Notre Dame is going to schedule. If Curt Cignetti had to play the schedule that Notre Dame had to play, he'd probably not say some of the things that he says when it comes to the Notre Dame schedule.
Tom, before I wrap it up with a college basketball question, it is Football Friday after all. Your thoughts on, when you look at Notre Dame, Indiana, certainly, if you had to pick, at least at this point in the year, based on the scheduling as much as anything else, the 5 schools that you feel will be, like once we get here into like early December, the 5 that one would assume are starting on the front row and the first two spots of row number 2 for the Indy 500 of the College Football National Championship. The 5 schools that are most prone, based on the way the year is laid out for them, that are in the best position here to have a year that we're going to be talking about next season and et cetera, like we did in Indiana last year.
Let's go with Oregon, Georgia, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and I'll leave that 5th spot open for a team that nobody sees coming. Like, wait, that's the team that's going to wind up being in the CFP semifinals or even the national championship game. Like, it's too easy to look at the AP poll or the USA Today poll and say, right, I'm going to take 5 of the top 6 or 5 of the top 7. Somebody's coming from back of the pack that nobody sees coming on August 21st. And they're going to be playing in the college football playoff in December and January.
Somebody like a Houston, or you know what I mean, that it falls their way. But I noticed you didn't say Indiana.
I did not. I just think it's going to be really hard now to go from the team that nobody's respecting and nobody's paying any attention to the team that everybody's paying attention to. Like, now you have to deal with that day-to-day pressure that some of these true blue blood college football programs deal with every single season, and not once every 35, 40 seasons.
You go from the hunted to the hunter, right? You go from the hunter to the hunted, I mean. And now, and Kurt Cignetti has pushed all the right buttons in terms of the bravado to this point, Tom. Is there any chance that wears out?
Of course.
Or that other coaches are gunning for him, so to speak?
Right. And other programs, and be like, all right, everybody, for whatever reason, doesn't believe Indiana and what they did last season. All right, now let's, we can't overlook Indiana. We've got to beat these guys. And it's hard. One of the other reasons I didn't pick Indiana is it's hard for me to pick 3 Big Ten programs. And right now, again, as we sit here on August 22nd or 21st, I think Oregon and Ohio State today, they're just better than Indiana.
Yeah,
now,
Oregon to me,
may change.
Tom, Oregon to me though is the you got to prove it to me program. And you know what?
True.
I like Oregon for a number of reasons. One of them being, by all account, the people that I know that went out there, and maybe you've just witnessed differently, but the people I know from Indiana that went out to Eugene for their game last year, and then also ran into Oregon fans in the college football playoff, said they were just fabulous. They were kind. Mm-hmm. They were, supportive. They were just sportsmanlike, all of it. I mean, I think there's a lot of things about Oregon to like, but Oregon to me is the proverbial, they're the new Penn State. Every year it's like 10-0 and you're excited, and then Texas A&M's another one. And then all of a sudden, every game that matters, something happens.
Oregon's there. That Oregon has to prove it, but you know what? You know who else has to prove it? Notre Dame's got to prove it. Because if you don't win this year, like, if not this year, when? Your payroll is pushing $50 million. You've got all the infrastructure. You've got the $200 million football facility. You've got a very manageable schedule, a quarterback that could be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft and a Heisman Trophy guy. If you can't get there and win it for the first time since 1988, when's it going to happen?
Okay, lastly, college basketball-wise, because you mentioned that you just got done with your preview.
Yes.
Man, how warm is Micah Shrewsbury's seat?
Ice cold, because they've put all, from the athletic department standpoint, they've put all their eggs, so to speak, in the football basket. Let's go win a national championship. With Micah Shrewsbury, they have not given him anywhere near the resources needed. Now, again, I preface every statement about Micah Shrewsbury is he's got to be a better coach. He's got to coach better. He's got to win more. He's got to do things that you say, wow, how did they do that? How did they pull off that win against Virginia or Carolina? How did they stay within 20 points at Duke? So he's got to coach better. But I just can't see if they decide that's it after this season, it's going to cost Notre Dame in a neighborhood of 20, 25, $30 million to buy them out, buy out the coaches, restart the roster, hire somebody. Unless Notre Dame football wins a national championship and they have this influx of cash, I can't see Notre Dame spending what they would need to spend to restart the basketball program. So I think they just ride it out. And whenever the time comes, say, we're going to start over with Micah Shrewsbury.
You know, Tom, the one blessing here of your camera not working is the fact that on the YouTube stream, they're all over us here. We got quotas now all of a sudden, right? And one of those quotas, they tell us that we got to get all the likes and subscriptions on our YouTube page. And I'm worried that had we actually seen the video of you talking with me right now, it might have shut that down. And we need to continue on the YouTube stream for the rest of the program. And so that probably is the blessing, but then we got to wait till next time to see the actual pearly whites, right?
Absolutely. I'll shave. I'll shower next time. The camera works. I do these things every week for the ACC coaches call, and the camera works every single time. I join Jake, and the camera goes bananas.
I didn't know until like 3 weeks ago that the camera has a little slide thing that like a little plastic thing that can go over and you can like block your I have no idea. The lens has like I don't know. I was doing it one time and somebody's like, "Why are you in a dark room?" I'm like, "No, it's bright in here." And I'm a moron with this stuff. But anyway, Tom, appreciate the time as always. Tom Noyes, South Bend Tribune. Appreciate it and look forward to talking to you over the course of the season.
You got it, brother. Have a great weekend.
Tom Noy joining us from South Bend, the South Bend Tribune on the Schwab Men's 2-1 hotline. We talked about high school football. Big-time matchups tonight. And Kyle Neddenrip actually has been prognosticating and predicting all of the games. He's going to join us in just a moment. Did I tell you also, Eddie, I have a legal issue going on?
Oh.
I've got some legality going on.
Okay.
I'm using the Uber. I'll explain what I'm talking about because I need your question with your courts. Now that we have the NCAA court circuit stuff going on, I've got a legal court question that I need to ask, and I'm going to rely on your non-expertise. I need you just to tell me that I'm doing things okay. I'll explain what I'm talking about after Kyle Neddenrip joins us, who joins us next.
High school, college, pros, all day. It's Football Friday. Brought to you by Quality Supply and Tool, Indiana's largest Milwaukee tool dealer. On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
So we talked plenty of Colts earlier. We discussed college football with Tom Noy. Now for the high school standpoint, it is time because, a lot of those other ones, when it comes to talking about those particular team schedules matchups, I find myself like kind of lost and clueless, and then we move to the high school aspect. And
speaking of lost and clueless, we bring on Kyle Neddenriff from the Indy Star.
That's right. He joins us now on the Swab Men's 2-1 hotline. Kyle Neddenriff on the program. And Kyle, you have, I guess for you, this probably feels like, I'm going to give one of my bad analogies here, but a lot of people ask me, thank you. That's our bad analogy sound. When it comes to broadcasting the Indy 500, people ask me a lot. They're like, are you nervous on race day? And I always say no, because when I'm sitting up there, I'm like, now's the fun part. All the hard work, the appearances, the luncheons, the qualifying, carb day, all the scheduling, the parade, that's all over with. Now it's just the fun of the race itself. I would imagine, do you feel the same way because of all the preview work that you've done to prepare for the season, and now the games are here? Is this where the fun begins for you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, there's obviously, work we have to do on Friday night, so it's not, completely, and I'm sure you feel that way too. I mean, you're still working, it's late nights, it's, trying to get a lot of stuff done. So it's not, not like we're working in the digging ditches here, but it's still, it's work. But at the same time, it's like, that's kind of fun part of now we figure out what's what, get to watch some great football. And the fun of this to me is like, it's the start of a new year. All the students are excited. It's, kind of football is just kind of built that way where it's, just the start of something new. And you definitely feel that in week one and really throughout the football season. I think there's a lot of that. So that's the fun of tonight. And yeah, I can't wait to, not only the game I'll be at, but just kind of following everything that's going on and learning, the things we learn from the first week of the season, just who's good, who might struggle, which players sort of have breakout games. And I think that's sort of what I still enjoy after doing the
Which class, when you look at it, would you say is the most loaded? Which class is the hardest to predict who will be, playing in the Dome Thanksgiving weekend, and there just seems to be the most balance across it?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, kind of the nature of the way the success factor works now. That's kind of weird how, like in 3A, and really in 2A, for example, you have the defending champ in Class 3A, and that wasn't success factor. Cascade just, by enrollment just bumped down slightly, and now they're 2A. So that's kind of weird. And then also in 1A, you had the 1A champion move up. So now you have in the same sectional, Cascade and South Putnam are in the same sectional in 2A. Neither one is a 2A defending champ, but they are defending champs in other classes. So it's just kind of a weird thing. And I would probably pick that class as what you're talking about, because when I was doing my state rankings, I'm like, man, I feel like Lapel has got a real chance to make a run here, and I'm not sure who would, block them. There's teams that can block them, certainly, but there's no, Andrean, actually the defending 2A champ, is now in 3A. So so there's just a lot of changes to kind of create, a little bit of difference in, what it looks like from year to year. And I think that's a good thing. I like the success factor overall. I think it accomplishes the goal of teams not just dominating one class forever and ever. So we've seen less of that because of the success factor. But yeah, I think 2A might be that. Brownstown Central is ranked number 1 in our first state poll that we put together, and they made it to the state finals last year. But I don't know that they're necessarily like an overwhelming favorite. The votes were pretty split in that class. So, I think 3A is sort of that way too, where Andrean, they were number one in 2A last year and won the state title. Now they bump up to 3A, but I'm not sure they're a significant favorite by any means. So, I think there's those two classes kind of stand out to me, especially where I think in maybe in 6A and 5A, you have a surefire number one. Now, whether that turns out to be true or not, whether the Brownsburg and New Pal are should be number one, we'll find out. But at least it was a pretty easy, both unanimous in our first state poll. So I think they were pretty easy to slot them in at number one going into it.
Kyle, which game are you headed to tonight?
I'm going to Brownsburg at Lawrence North.
Big one, man. I mean, you want to talk about high flying. I mean, and you're going to see two guys that are going to be teammates collegiately against one another. But man, you're getting right out of the box with potential Mr. Football implication, right?
Yeah, and not only those two, you got two other guys, Xavier Moore in the Lawrence North backfield, who he's going to Purdue, and he, his credentials are as good as anybody for that award. And then Oscar Fry from the Brownsburg quarterback, who also has won two state championships. So Shin Sales and Brandon Sharp, who are great, and those are the guys you were talking about. But those other two also, you could argue those four are the front runners going into it, and there'll be other people who get into the mix. But yeah, it's going to be. Yeah, I can't wait to see just sort of, what it looks like exactly, and who can stop the other one. I think that's kind of the question, is how the two defenses play is kind of the underappreciated storyline, I guess, is those two defenses will be under attack, and how do they rise up and stop the other team. So
Brownsburg to me is fascinating because there's so much, and obviously Brownsburg is used to the spotlight, right? They're used to playing in big games. But they talked so much about, Kyle, and I think you've done some columns about it, just the motivation they have here to repeat, and it almost is like the pressure is as internal with Brownsburg as it is external on those players, and they're placing it on themselves. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I sat down with John Hart and actually wrote something this week just about how Brownsburg has gotten to this point, and it is interesting to me, how. His question when he got hired to the people hiring in Brownsburg 10 years ago was, I'm committed to doing this. Are you? And they said, yes, of course. And sort of backed it up. But he said from the beginning, he's felt like, they didn't have the personnel necessarily right away to build the championship program, but he feels like the framework of building a championship program has been there for a while. And they had many losses that were crushing losses in the tournament that they kind of had this thing about them where they just couldn't quite get over the hump. And now that they have, I feel like, the ball is rolling a little bit, and, they have talked about, the target being on them, and now you kind of have to adjust to that role. And I feel like that's kind of the biggest thing with them is like, they did that last year. Can you keep doing that? The hard thing to do in 6A has been traditionally to go back to back, and they have done it. Center Grove did it a few years ago, and they actually won 3 in a row. But with all those great programs shooting for you, it's like, how can you stay on top? How can you adjust? John Hart said that. He's like, we can't do what we're doing and think that's good enough. We have to adjust and, keep ahead of things. So, it'll be really interesting. There are some question marks, I think, with this team that we'll find out about tonight. Every team has that, but I feel like they're sort of a machine right now, and they're going to get challenged tonight. They could lose tonight, and they could still win the state championship. It doesn't end that goal, but I will be really interested to see again how they kind of react to a really tough challenge out of the gate, and how do they respond to adversity throughout this season. I don't think it's not going to be easy for them by any means, but they kind of have that swagger to them right now.
Big time matchups, big time teams, big time coverage. Kyle Neddenripp has had it all covered for the Indianapolis Star. Then, of course, your traditional powers, Carmel, Warren, Ben Davis, and then all the way, Brownsburg now obviously unbelievably good. Center Grove, Lawrence North, smaller schools throughout the state. All the coverage, Indianapolis Star, and Kyle will be joining us throughout the season as well. Football Fridays here on The Fan. Kyle, appreciate it. Enjoy the game tonight, and we'll be looking forward to the coverage of it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jake.
Kyle Nedrip joining us from the Indianapolis Star. Eddie, here's my legal question. Are you ready to put on your legal hat?
Sure. I think I have a legal hat. I don't know if I do or not.
Basically, I just got to head over to the Bureau of Motor Vehicles. But, everybody knows, if they listen to the program, because I came in right afterwards, that I was in a car accident back in May, right?
Mm-hmm.
Car was totaled. I have a new car. Thank you to my insurance place was great. I had a check within like 2 weeks. It was really fast. But one of the things that happened, and this is the one thing, I don't have like a perspective, just like an agent, so to speak. But one of the things I said was, I was like, well, I'm pretty sure you got to have like this proof of insurance now to prove that the car was insured. Oh, yeah, no, we get a certificate of clarification or declaration or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, we take care of all that. Don't worry about that. I go, well, I got something from the – no, don't worry about that. So I was unsure whether or not that took place, and then I called them and asked them to email me this clarification or declaration or whatever it's called to show that I was insured, and all was well and good, and I went on about my merry way, and I got the new car, and everything's great. And then like 3 days ago, I get a thing saying your license is suspended because you didn't prove that you were insured at the time of this accident. And I'm like, well, no, here's the email I have of and they were, the BMV was allegedly CC'd on this, right? Mm-hmm. So I have this thing saying, no, he was insured, all right. And then I called and they said, we had a computer error. We're sending that over right now. And I said, so I'm good. Well, it'll take 24 hours, and then everything will be fine. Well, I just looked, and my license, at least on the website, is still listed as suspended.
Now, when was this conversation? When did that take place?
Tuesday.
Okay.
I assumed I might have been driving dirty for a day because I assumed that they told me it would take 24 hours, but I don't. So I'm going to have to just head over there, right? Am I rolling around? Am I going to end up like if I get pulled over tonight? Am I going to end up in the clink?
I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not familiar with the law and
I didn't do anything wrong. Here's the thing.
No.
I did, and I got a whole stack of papers sitting next to me in case I get pulled over to go. No. See, I'm telling you, I sent this over. I think something's going on nefarious with I think whoever's running the email inbox over there is kind of like the cell connection we just had, right? It's hit and miss. You just don't know. So I'm worried about this.
You want to give away our tickets, by the way, to the tomorrow's. It's a 4-pack of tickets to the Indy 11 match against Lou City.
And needless to say, if I was going with whoever actually won the tickets, they got to drive. Sure. How would you like to give these out?
So we are 23 days away from week number 1.
23.
For the Colts vs. Ravens at Lucas Oil Stadium. So Texter 23.
What we could do is the 23rd person to like the YouTube page.
Well, see, that's a problem. I don't know. I can't figure out who that would be. Then you start getting.
That's true. There's no way to track that. Is what you're getting at, right?
There's no way to.
All right, texter number 23 at 239-1070. And what do you just say? Like you just text in and say, "Here I am. I want to go." Is there a code word like the morning kids did?
Let's see. Let's not use the QR crap. Let's not go with that.
Kids love that. The QR.
Sega Baba. If you can say Sega Baba, yeah.
Nobody says that though.
I do.
Okay, how about
Derek
this?
Does.
How about this? Simply say what Sega Baba means. If everybody's using it, that shouldn't be a problem. 23rd person to say what Sega Baba means.
That's a lot. That's a lot to text out, though. Yeah, it has to be something simple.
You claim that's pretty simple.
Well, yeah, it is for me.
23rd texter, 239-1070. You're on your way to see Indy 11. J&V, we will check in with him. Crossover brought to you by the good guys at Love Heating and Air. We'll do it next.
Huddle up. It's Football Friday. Brought to you by Quality Supply and Tool, Indiana's largest Milwaukee tool dealer. On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Yeah, so it's still showing is suspended, by the way. Now I got 2 points I picked up, too. 3 times now. So I've got the printout. Do I just need to go over there and raise some stink, Eddie?
I think so.
Okay. Joining us now, and I'm sure thrilled to be doing so based on that, he is, of course, going to be doing his show at 3 o'clock today. The crossover brought to you by the good guys at Love Heating and Air, an official Heil Heating and Cooling dealer, JMV. John, I meant to ask you this, and I heard your interview with Gene Simmons a couple of weeks ago, and he mentioned you going up on the stage with them at the State Fair, and I didn't see – did you go to the show last night?
I did not go to the show last night. Yeah, I was where the hell was I? Oh, yeah, Westfield yesterday. That's where I was. So I did not stop by to see Gene, but I hear he got along without me.
I did hear. I saw him do one television interview where he immediately got into the whole thing about the Indy, I am Indy and the whole thing, and kind of he was playing the hits, so to speak. Let's put it that way.
Who was the dude that was interviewing him, by the way? Because Gene probably thought he had to play Dungeons and Dragons when the interview was over.
I did notice the kid looked like he was 12 years old, right? You saw the same interview I did.
I saw the same thing. Hey, by the way, you need a new insurance agent. How about joining me with the Ultimate and Brian Neer? You want to do that? You got to have somebody. And you understand, you know this firsthand. My life is absolutely chaos, and it would be incredible. I couldn't keep track of it without him. He keeps track of everything.
Yeah,
I mean, Brian Neer.
Yeah, I will say they took great care of me except for this aspect of it. I mean, I'm like, well, I don't know what more I need to do here, right? They sent me everything.
I think that's enough for me to have you come join forces with Brian Neer, because there's nobody but he keeps track of everything. Of mine. I mean, everything.
It is a little chaotic. There's no question about it. What is on? And you're right. If Brian can keep track of your life, John, then good Lord, right? Yes. No offense.
Yes. Can you imagine?
Yeah. What's on the big show today?
We're going to be in Ingalls today. We're at Taylor's Bar and Table. Taylor's Bar and Table in Ingalls, right off of I-69. It's me and Tony Renz, our friend, and Brent Halverson. So Evan Williams and the Indiana Standard Bread Association is going to be there with me. We got Don Fisher, Joel A. Erickson, Bob Lovell, and a Football Friday just like you guys have today.
Yeah, a ton to talk about, including the Colts getting set for the Atlanta Falcons. That game, of course, Saturday at 1 o'clock. And just overall, best thing about it, John, and I'm not saying anything in dismiss of your coolness, but those are two pretty good dudes to be hanging out with today, man. You're lucky in that regard.
Let me tell you, I love Fridays when we're always hanging out. It's springboard to the weekend, but with Brent and Tony, it is going to be fantastic. By the way, coming up next week, we're going to start the Bud Light Blue Fridays, which is going to be awesome, too. And there's going to be a big-time prize at the end of this season. So a lot of info for you. And obviously, with what you guys have done in the morning show have done, Football Friday with high school football underway tonight. It's going to be a busy afternoon. Come join us in Ingalls at the Taylor's Bar and Table, an outstanding place.
All right, John, we'll be listening to it or swing by, certainly, if you were in the area to say hi to John and the boys. Look forward to it and have a great weekend as well. Look forward to the takeover tomorrow night.
You too, buddy. Thank you.
All right, JMV joining us again. The crossover brought to you by the good guys at Love Heating and Air, love-hvac.com. Eddie, your big plans for the weekend include?
I'll be calling a football game tonight, Jake, for IndianaHighSchoolSports.com on IHJ TV. We've got the alma mater. We've got Decatur Central and Avon. Should be a pretty good game. It's a fascinating matchup.
That game is where?
At DeVere Fair Stadium in Decatur Central, Indianapolis, Indiana.
Do they do like an honorary introduction of you and stuff like that?
I did text the athletic director this morning and asked him, and he said, I think we can make that happen.
Really?
Yeah.
So you asked for an introduction?
No, I said, hey, am I getting the VIP treatment? Will there be a red carpet? Is there going to be a, you know, how they do sometimes on NFL or, you know, like especially on these Kansas City games, they'll pan to Taylor Swift in the booth like 1,000 times. Are they going to pan to me 1,000 times on DC TV? And he said, we can make that happen.
They panned to Cooper Flagg last night during the Fever game.
Oh, yeah, that was
and
funny.
he did like the eye roll. That's how I know Twitter's dead, because I sent out a thing of it and like 5 people reacted. And 10 years ago, that would have like been a semi-viral moment.
100%.
Not because of me, but because of just Cooper Flagg. And I don't like the mustache, but
Olivia's birthday is tomorrow, so I think we're doing a little get-together and then have to double duty. Fever and the other job on Sunday. So.
Okay. All right. We'll have a fabulous weekend, by the way.
You have fun broadcasting the Freedom 250.
I will. I will be broadcasting that this weekend, and we will recap everything that took place in the world of sport, including recapping the Colts and Falcons. That game, 1 o'clock. You will hear it here on this radio station coming up on that's Saturday, right?
Saturday,
on
yes.
Saturday, and then the IndyCar race on Sunday. You folks have a wonderful weekend, and I thank you for listening to Query & Company.